And welcome to the February 7th regular City Commission meeting. So I've now called the meeting to order, and Mr. Wiley, would you please call the roll?
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Here.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Here.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Here.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Here.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
Present. Would you all please stand and join me in the flag salute? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yep, that was
We did it a bit faster.
Yeah, well, we kind of do it a little bit faster. And if you can't hear for some reason, just raise your hand. Staff will be kind of scanning the audience just in case. And if you need some electronic devices, would you please let Mr. Jacob Wiley know if you need headset or anything, or Mr. Evan Lee. That way you can hear everything that's going on. So tonight we have on our agenda one proclamation. And I just want to say for the record, it is Happy Black History Month. This is something that's been celebrated since 1976, and I have a proclamation I'd like to read on behalf of the city. So whereas every February, National Black History Month serves as both a celebration and a powerful reminder that Black history is American history. Black culture is American culture, and Black stories are essential to the ongoing story of America. And whereas beginning in 1976, every president of the United States have declared the month of February as Black History Month. And whereas Black and African Americans have made innumerable contributions that have enriched America, and indeed the lives of every American, and Black and African Americans have made and continue to make America a better place, and Americans better people. And whereas throughout the arc of history to the present day, Black and African Americans have experienced and have endured the inhumanity of injustices and inequalities. Whereas in the face of wounds and obstacles older than our nation itself, Black and African Americans can be seen in every part of our society today, strengthening and uplifting all of America. And whereas on June 9th, 2020, the City Commission of the City of Oregon City individually signed Resolution 2019, stating and outlining the city's stance against racism, discrimination, and social injustice in our country and in our community of Oregon City. Whereas we celebrate National Black History Month, let us all commit to ourselves to reach for that which every American is due. Let us move forward the work to build an America that is benevolent, diverse, and united. And now therefore be it resolved, the City Commission of Oregon City calls upon educators, librarians, and all the people of Oregon City to observe this month with appropriate programs, ceremonies, activities. And we do hereby proclaim February 2024 as Black History Month, and call upon the residents of Oregon City to join their fellow citizens across the United States in recognizing and participating in this special observance. And then I will sign the proclamation today on the 7th of February 2024. And we have some excellent displays at the Oregon City Library, and I urge you to go over and check them out. And in addition, the mural that was painted during the celebration of the Arch Bridge is also back at the library, and I also urge you to go see that. I think it's fantastic, and I'm glad we have it back in our library, and it will stay there as far as I know for the present time. So that is just a few things to visit our wonderful Oregon City Library. So next on our agenda, item number, I don't see any slips here for citizen comments for items that are not on the agenda. Is there anybody here who did not fill out a slip that wants to say something for an item that's not on the agenda? So I just want to make sure we didn't miss anybody. Okay, so seeing none, we'll move on to the next item. So we have a presentation tonight, and again, is a presentation. It is not a decision of any sort. It is information that the commission has requested. Oh, that's my water. Thank you. We're out of water in the back 40.
Oh, got
Before we get started with the presentation, I do have a question. Would it be appropriate, Mr. Conkle, for us to ask for staff to come forward and answer the question regarding the zoning and the land use in the area of this proposal?
Certainly, if this is the order you'd like to receive information.
That would be great.
Okay. Quilla, can you come down as well, please?
Thank you so much.
Do you have specific questions for us, or did you want us to sort of
Yeah,
give you a lay of the land from our perspective?
Well, I think it would be appropriate for our staff to give sort of a lay of the land and talk specifically. A number of questions that I have received over time is what is the zoning and what are the allowed uses in that particular zone? So I think that as the premise and the basis for explaining all of that, you can talk about that vis-a-vis. We also have some legislation that was passed by the Oregon legislature, which affects every city and county in the state. That also is applicable to the zoning uses and things that we're going to be talking about.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. Just for the benefit of the audience, my name is Aquila Hurd-Ravitch. I'm the Community Development Director. And so the site is located in the mixed-use downtown zone. And that zone has a wide variety of uses that are allowed. It's probably one of our more permissive zones in the city. So I can kind of go through the list of things that are allowed there, or if there's something specific, or if it would just be helpful for me to kind of rattle off things that are allowed there.
The zoning district itself, that would be helpful.
I'm sorry?
The zoning district itself. You talked about mixed use.
Right, yes, it's mixed use downtown, and so it allows all kinds of things along the lines of medical and dental clinics, veterinary clinics, a number of different types of services, personal services, professional, educational, laundry, dry cleaning, health and fitness clubs, banquet, conference facilities, just a number of wide variety, postal services, restaurants, without drive-throughs, but restaurants are allowed, other educational and training facilities, retail stores, grocery, gift shops, bakeries. There are some things that require a conditional use permit. So in the retail category, if the building is larger than 60,000 square feet, then it requires a conditional use permit. But offices, finance, insurance, those are all allowed uses in the mixed-use downtown district. And the reason for that is that we're, wanting to see a variety of uses in downtown that can accommodate different types of structures and buildings and just create different types of pedestrian and foot traffic.
And then how does that relate to the comprehensive plan designation?
I think the comprehensive plan designation is also mixed use downtown. And so that is really trying to promote that just variety of uses that can have a more intense in terms of number of people and supporting more of an intense activity center.
I think the key question that people are here to hear, and the reason we get lots of letters, is understanding that zoning. Does that place the city in any position to deny this facility from being placed within that zone?
So I first want to say that I have not seen any type of land use application. I did get to review a grant application that listed some uses within that grant and within their grant application. So based on what I saw, I believe that all of the uses that they described within that grant application are permitted uses. I just want to make it clear that we haven't gone through any type of specific land use review, but so based on the information that I have, I believe they're all permitted.
Understood, thank you. I thought that was important for our audience to understand. Thank you.
And to be clear, even if it was not an allowed use, there is still state legislation that allows for the super siting of these shelters without any local decision-making, is that correct? Apart from general safety industrial zones, that would be obvious not to put those in, is that correct?
So, with Aquila talking about the local code, I was going to talk a little bit about the state law. And I think I have presented to the City Commission about this supersiding bill on a number of occasions. This first started in 2020 with House Bill 4001, and then it was amended again in 2023 to extend the sunset clause, but it essentially is a shelter supersiding bill. And what it says is a local government shall approve an application for the development or use of land for emergency shelter. And then it defines what an emergency shelter is. And an emergency shelter includes sleeping facilities, or it cannot include sleeping facilities. It doesn't have to be just all sleeping. The key to an emergency shelter is it has to be funded in partnership or by an organization that has 2 years' experience operating an emergency shelter. So I'm assuming if the Father's Heart partnered, or if Clackamas County partnered, that would qualify. But again, we haven't seen an application, so I don't exactly know what the qualifications would be to fit under this bill, but it does appear to me to fit. It includes showering and bathing, storage of personal property, laundry facilities, service of food, recreation for children and pets, case management, and all other services incidental to a shelter. So it's fairly broad. The result of that would be no land use review, so no conditional use permit or anything, no site plan review, so no design review, but we would still have building permits and all of the codes that would apply, electrical code and fire code and all of the building related codes health and safety codes would continue to apply.
Before you go further, I want to jump back to the land use. So obviously staff is aware of my background, so anything that is allowed under a specific zoning district is allowed outright, and there would be no, as you already stated, Ms. Hurd-Ravitch, there's no review required. So if I, want to be in the mixed use downtown and I want to open a office, the issue of what the office is not pertinent to the land use. It's an office, and that's the use that is allowed in that particular zone. So that's a question that I've been asked many, many times, and I basically tried to explain it as best I could, that that's the law. We cannot specify this office or that office, or, as some of you know, we had a retail business on the 7th Street corridor that many in the community objected to. It was allowed outright. We could not prevent them from being there, but subsequent to some other situations, and Mr. Neely will know what I'm talking about, they decided to vacate, but it was an allowed use in the zone whether we liked it or not. And we did accept that as a community in our neighborhood. But the other permits, as you mentioned earlier, would be a building permit, and I believe there is, unless an applicant is flagrantly violating the law, building permits are generally not denied. They're generally always approved based on the plans and submittals and everything, and then the staff reviews them. So there really are, the way that our state land use laws work, if it's an outright permitted use in the zone, that's end of story. Other than occupancy
And we would have site plan, we would have design review, but I think this Senate bill, the state legislation preempts the design review that would go with a use of this type.
Well, I guess here's another question. So if an emergency shelter is only part of it and there are other things that are going on there would seem to me that some sort of design review would be in order, particularly if the complete exterior facade is going to be changed, obviously, to me, that makes sense that that would be looked at through the building permit process.
Well, I think the
So
building code,
does it matter if only one portion of it is X and the other things are something else?
I don't know.
Yeah, see, I don't know the answer to that
And
question.
I don't know if we would want to divide the building and say this corner is shelter and this 3/4 is not shelter, so we're gonna do design review of 3/4 of a building, so we're gonna require compliance with the setbacks for those 3/4. I mean, you've got it, my understanding is this is an existing building.
Yes. It's going to need major renovation.
Right, we could look into that further when we had a
Sure.
proposal, but,
Sure.
so,
That would be appropriate. That works. Any other questions? Please feel free, Commissioners.
I think we've done a good job explaining initially what we cannot do, and at some point, in response to the concerns that are going to be raised, we will respond with what we could potentially do or still could not do. But I think that can wait till later in tonight's conversation. Thanks.
Go right ahead.
Well, first, I just want to thank everyone that took the time to come and be here. I always am happy to see when there are people here who take the time out of their busy lives to tell us what they think and how they think their local government should be run. And so I really appreciate that. And I also appreciate getting that primer from our staff because it's important to realize that our state has tied our hands behind our back just about as best as they can when it comes to these issues. And we know not only just that, but the issues of coming back from COVID with the social and the economic impacts. We know that with the absolute failures of Measure 110, that things have gotten worse. And so we see that every single day. In fact, the three of us in the middle here, live very close to the Father's Heart and live in the McLaughlin district where this proposed site is going to be. And so this is something that we see every single day when we drive to work, when we drive back from these meetings. These are something that we, like you, are seeing, and we have the same concerns that you do. We have the same questions that you do. And part of it for me that I've been frustrated about is that for me, I haven't felt like I've had that opportunity to ask those questions of the stakeholders, just like you. And so we're frustrated, we want answers, and I hope that you guys will remember this. And again, thank you so much for being here tonight, and I'm hoping we can have a fruitful conversation about the future of what it means to have a livable community here in Oregon City.
Well, before we thank you, and we may ask some other questions on the way back. I just have a quick question. We have a number of items on here, and there's some people that didn't put down. So Marcy, what item are you here for? So if you have an agenda with you, you didn't put anything next to your name? Marcy? Well, I thought it looked like an R to me. I'm sorry. It's Macy, sorry. So I asked everybody, please print. Okay, you didn't put anything next to your name. That's why I'm asking. And then Mr. Edgar, you didn't put anything next to your name either. Okay. I can't even read what you put at the end, so that's why I'm asking. Okay. So hang on just a second. I need to check my agenda. Somebody else put a different number, so I'm just double checking that. Okay, all right. So as I said before I got up here on the dais, that I do appreciate everybody being here. This is important. As much as I support some of the things that our state government does, I don't always support things that the government does. But that's how we work within the process. So again, we're here as a commission. We're interested in getting factual information. That's how we're going to learn. We're here to learn just as well as many of you are. So let's begin with the facts. So who's going to be speaking on behalf of the coalition? He needs the clicker. just get that adjusted however you need to make it work.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and
Oh,
Yeah. the
yeah,
green
turn it
button.
on.
There you go.
Don't call me madam.
good evening, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. My name's Dan Fowler. I'm the chairperson and chairman and president of the Homeless Solution Coalition. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to be here today. Before I start in the coalition, I just want to recognize, before it gets too far out of our memory, that we had quite a severe weather event about 2 weeks ago. And I just want to applaud the nonprofit service providers, our emergency service providers, for the work they did to help those people. So kudos to them. The Homeless Solution Coalition was formed in 2016. We've had a number of community meetings over the years, tried to learn effective and efficient solutions to the homeless problem. In 2023, so just last year, we held in April a number of community meetings, specifically regarding had meetings with the chamber, we had meetings with the Emergency Business Alliance. We spoke at Rotary. We had 3 nightly meetings open to the public. So we've tried to, at that point, get word out. I get it that sometimes these issues, until you hear about it, you don't hear about it. And you want to know more. And people want to know more. And we'll try to provide as much as we can and answer every question we can tonight. We do understand the state laws. That doesn't mean we're not trying to be sensitive to what we do. We get that the state has tied your hands. We do. But we're not here to take advantage of that. We're not here to shove something down the community's throat that isn't good and isn't right. We can debate locations, we can debate a lot of stuff, but we're here to also to listen and to hear what the concerns and fears might be of our community and do our very best to address those, because we are all a part of this community. So I'd like to start here and give you an idea of what we will be going tonight. So a little bit about who we are, we did that. Brandy's going to talk about the work of the service providers specifically. And I'll say maybe in general to frame this, the Resource Center, back in April when we began to really talk about this, the Father's Heart and loved one that is now in the Father's Heart, they're doing a fabulous job in terms of meeting many of the needs of our homeless population. They've added personnel because of that, but they're really in cramped space. So a lot of this was driven by, can we get a facility that's adequate for them to operate out of, and at the same time move it out of the residential McLaughlin neighborhood? And that was just from listening from the Father's Heart and listening to the neighborhood. The Homeless Solutions Coalition, we are not a direct service provider. Our mission is to help and serve the service providers. So what we're trying to do is locate and have a facility that the nonprofits who are already here in our community can do their work from. So the Father's Heart would relocate, Loved One would relocate, and many others would be there. It's done in a means and in an effort to be more effective in their work. And we found through a lot of research, a lot of visiting with other cities and leaders, the most effective way to affect homelessness is through collaboration. Is when the nonprofits can get to know each other, work together, collaborate, that they are more effective in actually succeeding in helping someone move from a homeless situation to a house situation. And Brandy can elaborate that a lot better than I am. So we're going to then talk a little bit more about the center itself. Our architect is here. We'll give you a little brief look at kind of the stage of that. We're going to talk about safety and security. It's another issue that is top on our list. I know it is of the neighborhood that they're in now, and I know it is in the new location, and what are our thoughts and our plans around that. And then we're going to introduce our new executive director and talk about what's next. So Brandy, you want to talk about service providers?
Dan. I think you all know me. Good evening, but I will reintroduce myself.
Got to do it for the record.
And I won't be doing a shower report. Brandy Johnson, Executive Director of Love One and of The Father's Heart, and also a board member of the Homeless Solutions Coalition. A little background, I've lived and worked in this community, specifically Oregon City, for the last 23 years. I lived in the McLaughlin neighborhood until 2021, and we moved just up Holcomb. And so we're still very close. My commute is about 3 minutes. What I want to talk about tonight is the highly effective and efficient work that Love One and Father's Heart are already doing 4 blocks away from the location that we will be moving to. So the Father's Heart Day Center services include, a little background, with the influx of the supportive housing services funding, we now have funding to staff up appropriately, and that's something we've been working on. We've expanded services in that we can provide case management. We can provide peer support. We have better access to treatment and recovery supports, mental health referrals, basic medical care, and then, of course, the day-to-day essential needs of showers, clothing, meals, and other on-site partners. Currently, we're averaging about 100 people a day, and the majority of those folks are from the Oregon City local area, Gladstone, around the area. We do track where folks are from. We do keep an eye on where people are staying and what services they're connected to. And when we do have folks come in who are from out of the area, we do prioritize reconnecting them to those services back where they have come from. In the last half of 2023, the Father's Heart utilized $65,000 in rapid rehousing money. So for anyone unfamiliar with that, that provides short-term up to 3 months and medium-term, which is 4 to 24 months of tenant-based rental assistance and supportive services to households experiencing homelessness. We also operate as an emergency shelter during warming, cooling, and smoke events, which we have experienced all of those a few times. Most recently, a couple of weeks ago, we run a transitional housing hotel program. We have contracts with 2 sites where we have 60 participants who are in the process of stabilizing and will be moving into longer-term supportive housing. And a little overview of the population served by the Father's Heart is not just the stereotypical unhoused individual that comes to mind often when we're thinking about that, but we also serve families, elderly folks, and veterans. We've seen an influx of families with kiddos living in their vehicles recently, and we've also seen an influx of our elderly population also living in their vehicles, often with their pets. And so we have been prioritizing those folks. They're often placed into non-congregate shelter. Our team is able to put them into hotels and work with them on housing and other options, connect them to other services, whether it's Social Security, disability, Medicaid, Medicare, all of the things. We pursue all of the options. So that's a brief overview of what happens, on a very brief overview at the Father's Heart and with our transitional housing program. For Love One, last year we did 62 tons of clean laundry, and that is directly related to helping families. So a lot of folks that we serve are experiencing houselessness or on the brink of, and when you have to pay for off-site laundry, it's very expensive. And so when we can provide kiddos with clean clothes, or parents who need to go to work with their clean clothes, that's much of what we do. We have 5 events in the local area, and then in our rural communities, we do weekly in Estacada and Molalla. We provided 165 hot showers with our shower cart. We run a weekly rural food pantry out in Redland at the Redland Grange. We serve primarily housed folks, low income. We serve more than 300 people every Thursday. Anywhere from 2,000 to 5,000 pounds of food is gone in 15 minutes. It's absolutely astounding, the need, and that's partnering with Oregon Food Bank and Clackamas Service Center and other food partners. But just access is tough. We housed 42 households last year. That includes long-term retention support, so we don't just put someone into housing and say, peace out, good luck. We show up with food boxes. We help set up utility payments. We make sure rent is getting paid. If they want supports with employment, mental health, medical care, all of the wraparound services, that's what our team does. And I would say arguably the process to housing is the easier part, and that's including the barriers that include maybe warrants or law enforcement involvement or evictions on their record, things like that. The retention piece of housing when someone moves back in is a lot of work. And so we don't just hand people off. We continue working with them so that they can continue to stabilize and remain housed. That's very important to us. Currently, we have 17 people in hotels who are working on housing. We supported 24 people into sober housing the last half of 2023. We also run a trash program. We partner with local law enforcement, take referrals, and go and clean up sites that have been identified by our community. Through much of this work is done with our staff, but we also rely on our community support. So that looked like 5,000 volunteer hours last year. That's how amazing our community is. We partner with the Oregon City Police Department, Clackamas County Sheriff, municipal courts, community court, parole and probation, code enforcement, Clackamas County, Metro, Solve, Fourth Dimension Recovery, Outside In, and other partners. We don't do this in a silo. We don't do it by ourselves. We are not the experts in many of these things, and so we look to our partners to help us. I mentioned our rural outreach team, so we do outreach and housing, laundry events, we're adding showers, and that's Sandy, Malala, Estacada, and we do referrals in Canby and Welch's and other areas. We partner with Ant Farm Family Youth Services on many of those adventures. Between Father's Heart and Love One, we have 52 employees and 4 paid high school interns. We have 100, by the end of the month, 100% of our Level 1 staff will be trained peer supports, and we are working on that with Father's Heart. So all of this work requires a lot of staff, and as Dan mentioned, more space. Our most recent adventure was one of our water heaters overflowed into a crack in the ground and then flooded the building. But we figured it out. We have a gutter system set up. It's a little hokey, but it works. We're literally bursting at the seams is the point. And so the idea of having enough bathrooms, showers, and just even staff offices, meeting rooms to meet with our clients and with our on-site service providers, a little privacy when someone's seeking recovery and sobriety services or mental health would be just a game changer. And with this new location, we'll be able to co-locate with our other service providers. Right now, they rotate through, but it's a little tricky. Everybody's on top of each other, so that will be a huge help. And so I just want to thank you for your time, and I'm going to turn it over to one of our staff who is going to share her journey. Yeah.
I want to ask you, Brandy, because you mentioned the outreach program.
Dan, you need to speak into the mic a little.
You mentioned the outreach program. Could you elaborate a little bit on the outreach program and how you see that interfacing with what we call hub and spoke, to where when you might take a shower cart out and we surround it with services in the community room? Because specifically, there's a lot of question, if we build this, everybody's going to come here. And we've given that a lot of thought. And that's not our intention. Our intention is to serve the people, but to serve them where they are. So this hub and spoke model in our minds is, we might be a hub, but we want to spoke out to the various communities with services. I want you to just elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, we're not going to say, put everybody on a bus and come to Oregon City to get your shower and your clean underwear. That's the point of our outreach team, is we take the shower cart, we take the van, we go out, we partner with the laundromats, and we do the outreach. We get referrals, like I mentioned, through law enforcement, community members, groups, clubs, whomever. We go out and set up those events and do those things in the communities because, for the most part, folks don't want to relocate. And it's a trek to come from anywhere else here and then to try to get back, as we know. And there's transportation issues, there's connection to services, but folks, for the most part, want to stay in their communities where they're from. What's familiar, they know where they can go, they know where they can access services. So we take those things out to them. So we're not looking to bring anyone additional in. I'm not going to say that that won't happen. I am a realist, and our intention and what we're already actively doing and have these events set up is we go out into these communities weekly and do these things in partnership with their Rotary clubs, with their volunteers, their churches, their business owners, and build that support, just like we've done in Milwaukee, just like we've done in Oregon City, and just like we'll continue to do. But we'll have a place to park our shower cart in our van, which will be amazing.
Very nice. Okay, did you have a person who had something they wanted to read? You can sit up with her. When you're done, I'll come back up.
Okay, thanks, Dan.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners and people in the House. My name is Rachel Williams, age 42. I have 2 boys, ages 7 and 10. I enjoy summertime activities, especially spending time with my children, family, and just being a caring, compassionate, and somewhat funny person. My addiction started early in life and ended 1 year prior to having my firstborn, except for alcohol. Back in 2020, I had my last go-around with alcohol, which led me back to the streets for 8 long months. My children at the time were living with my father, which was by far the saddest point in my life. During that time, I would spend time crying to my brother, who was also houseless at the time. He often visited the Father's Heart Street Ministries for lunch, and I would join him. After a short time on the streets, I chose to participate in a drug and alcohol outpatient treatment program, which ended up saving my life. While going through the program, I decided to go back to school at Clackamas Community College to complete a 1-year certificate program in human services. I felt it was time to give back to my community. I started volunteering for Love One, helping at their bi-weekly mobile shower events, which I love. After I had volunteered for a couple of months, Love One asked if I would like to be a participant in their program, as they knew I was currently houseless. I gladly agreed and was fortunate enough to receive an RLRA, otherwise known as RLove housing voucher, a few months later. During my last term of college, I was lucky enough to be required to do an internship to graduate. I reached out to Brandy at Love One and asked if Love One would be interested in allowing me to be an intern for her nonprofit organization I had come to love. She accepted, and that is when the fulfillment of helping people achieve their goals began to happen. After my 4-month internship was completed and certificate in human services earned, Love One, the Father's Heart, decided they wanted to keep me around. They offered me a peer support specialist position, which I gladly accepted. After accepting the position, I have been fortunate enough to participate in a long list of trainings that allowed me to become a certified peer support specialist, trained in de-escalation, CPR certified in adults, children, and infants to be able to save lives, as well as other training opportunities I have successfully completed. Now I'm proud to say that my current position at Love One is as the peer support and outreach team lead. When hearing about the opportunity to move to a new location for the Father's Heart that would be as well be a resource center, I was ecstatic. I feel our participants would greatly benefit from having most of the resources needed to be successful in one centralized location, and having, in turn, making it more likely for them to be able to access much needed support services such as SNAP or OHP benefits, a medical and or mental health provider, recovery mentors, etc. All will be supported by peer outreach specialists, Love One, and the Father's Heart staff they already know, feel connected to, and are comfortable with. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you in the near future at the new Resource Center. Thank you.
So are we moving towards more factual information, which is why we're here, the building, the
We're moving it right.
process? Okay, thank you.
Okay, so let's talk about the Resource Center. First, I want to just read what we envision it to be in a broad sense, and then we'll go into the specifics. HSCCC envision a shared space where local service provider, public safety officials, healthcare professionals, faith-based organization, educators, and government agencies can come together under one roof to collaboratively address the systemic issue of homelessness. Our vision is to bring together major stakeholders and help them act in a coordinated and efficient manner, and refer this model a resource center. Next to me is Chris, and Chris is our architect. Chris Keene is our architect, and we're going to talk a little bit about the center. Adequate shared space, one-stop resource center, and when we go adequate space, the Father's Heart is sitting at about 5,500 square feet. They're talking about maybe doubling that or going to 10 to 12,000 square feet. And you're going to see in a minute, the building that's there is too big, and most likely is going to be torn down. So this is not a ginormous 40,000 square foot structure. We're in the process of that. Easy collaboration, I mentioned that already, joint problem solving, and those with lived experience can become part of the solution. So we'll actually be involved in that. Our major tenants, Father's Heart and Love One, we've already expressed that. And Chris, you want to talk about this?
Sure. I'll introduce myself first. My name is Chris Keene, Bearing Architecture. I'm a principal and owner there. We've been working with the Homeless Solutions Coalition for a number of months now. Primarily what we've been up to in the recent, let's say last 2 months, is working on the building program itself. So when I say that, I mean, what's in it, right? How big is it? What needs to be there in order to operate? And we spent a lot of time with Father's Heart and with Love One and their staff to make sure, as Dan said, that we get them the space they need, the type of space they need, and configured the way they need it. And we're also having conversations about other program that might be a good fit for the building, and other partners that might be a good fit for the building. So that includes things like the potential for a primary care clinic. We like the idea of a coffee shop, right? Something that's kind of outward facing to the community that could provide some opportunity for employment for folks that come through the center. Counseling offices, coordinating housing access, educational spaces, classrooms that could be used for offering courses tailored to the clientele, meeting facilities, both for potentially for the community, but also for the service providers themselves. So there's a lot of things that we're kind of sorting through. But as we move forward, we're kind of getting close to our kind of core building program. And as you all know, the location is on 15th and Main Street, the old Miles fiberglass building. As Dan said, the site is basically fully occupied by the building. It's a little bit more than 40,000 square feet. We're looking at a facility here that's closer to 25 to 30,000 square feet. So the image you see on the screen, I will just say, is an early concept image, and it will evolve as we move forward. But this gives you a decent idea of how much that is on the site. What it allows us to do is two things. One, it allows us to have a two-story building that occupies just a little more than half of the site. That allows space for parking that can be secured. Brandy mentioned, storing her vehicles and the shower units. It also allows us to design a facility that is organized around an internal courtyard. And we like that because it allows us the opportunity to address a number of items. One, it works really well for the program that we know is going to be in the building. But two, it allows us an opportunity to start creating multiple entrances and to take the activity from the street into the interior of the property. So we're really kind of coalescing around this idea of this larger internal courtyard. There's another image there. Again, these are early images, but you get the idea. Outdoor space that will be the kind of heart of the facility. It will be removed from the public right-of-ways and from the sidewalks. It'll allow us to address some of the queuing issues that happen when the property is not quite open yet. It'll allow us to hopefully mitigate any kind of significant impact on neighbors. So we're early in the process, as I said, with designing the building, but we'll start to develop this scheme further, and we're looking forward to coming back and sharing images as it evolves.
I'll surprise our police chief a little bit, but one of the things we've talked about is when we get closer to a design or even conceptual design, to really have our police department look at it from their eyes, like what do they see? How could we improve security? we'll be talking to the neighbors. I had a conversation with Subaru today about it. So safety and security, how the neighbors, it's affected. Chris mentioned the coffee shop. We'd like to see that on the corner of the building to help relate to the retail nature that's going to the south. So those are things that we're taking great care with. Okay, I think our next is Brandy and Marty. You're going to come up? Or just Marty and Bill. Marty and Bill.
I just have a quick question, just because it was a little hard to hear. So, Chris, did you say that part of the building will be reused, or the building, sorry.
We haven't made an absolute
decision,
final,
but tentatively, yeah.
but I would say there's about a 90% chance that whole building's going away. We've looked at a lot of cost models. Do you want to address some of that?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of things that we've been looking at. One, we did some geotechnical analysis on the facility, and to upgrade the current building and with the change of use, it's going to be pretty elaborate in terms of getting foundations in that building that are going to meet code. So there's a huge amount of money involved in that. It's also not quite tall enough to get a second story in. It's a foot or two below what we'd like to see. And the third piece is we think the site can be used much more effectively if we're starting from new. So we're in the process of evaluating that from a financial standpoint, but I think all signs are pointing at the moment towards a new construction.
Yeah, I was pretty sure thought that's what you said. I just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, the other piece that it allows is phasing, right? So we've got a program we're trying to hit, and part of that is raising enough money to hit it. And if we can't hit it all at once, this will also allow us to do this in multiple phases if we need to.
Mayor, if I may. Given that statement about the building and the future of the building, do you anticipate any interim operation in the existing building?
No. There's a minimal amount of storage that the Miles family had in there with some tenants, just a small amount that will maybe continue until it's not needed. But sooner, we're talking about potentially taking the building down this summer.
Okay, thank you.
So very little.
Thank you for clarifying that.
Marty and Bill.
Good evening.
Evening.
I want to just briefly talk about security because that's been a point of contention or point of reference as far as the neighborhood. I want to thank Mayor McGriff for her involvement in getting a good neighbor agreement. She was very much involved, and there was many people involved, but we do have a good neighbor agreement in the McLaughlin neighborhood, and we plan on having a good neighbor agreement in our new facility. That's not even that will be done. Another thing is we had those meetings in April, and in listening to all the things that were concerning, security in our current facility was really important. And with that, we went back and collaborated with this OCPD. We collaborated with many different people, and we're able to secure funding. So now we have 24/7 security at our building when we're not open. During the ice storm, we had 24 security during the whole time, regardless whether we were open or not. They were there. We contracted with Oregon Patrol. They were highly recommended by the chief of police, and they've been doing a great job. So I think it's really important that you know that. We have plans to do the same thing in our new facility.
My name is Bill Stewart. I'm a deputy district attorney with Clackamas County. I've been there for about 22 years. For the last 17, I've been a community prosecutor, which meant I deal with homeless folks predominantly. I want to speak to two issues, one of which is why I think this is an appropriate investment for the Oregon City community. Quite frankly, I, as Chief Davis has experienced, I prosecuted a ton of homeless folks. I prosecuted some individuals 15 or more times. And I quite frankly didn't believe that I was making the community safer with those repeated prosecutions. I like my job. I love my job. But but I didn't change their behavior. And my understanding of my job is that what can I do to make the community safer and improve quality of life of the citizens that live here? And what we found in our partnership with Loved One and Father's Heart is that getting these folks off the street is the most cost-effective way to improve public safety. And over the last, essentially since COVID, with the SHS money, with finally having transitional housing, we've housed people I never thought we'd get off the street. And it's been through the partnership of these folks. And so what you have an opportunity here from my perspective is a chance to build that sort of collaboration at a higher level than exists today. Now you may say, I've heard people say that, well, you're gonna make this place look like Portland. Folks, I actually live in Portland. And I'm incredibly disappointed in how it works there. One of the key reasons it's not gonna be like Portland is because your OCPD is gonna be right there as an integral partner. The DA's office will continue to prosecute people when they break the law. And what we'll do is have a collaborative effort to try to push folks into this sort of opportunity. And if they don't, we'll hold them accountable. We have, Brandy mentioned our community court, which actually now meets up at the juvenile building on the top of the hill in Red Soils. Quite frankly, it's the most effective court we have in Clackamas County when it comes to stopping people from reoffending, particularly these most challenged homeless folks. And it's because of these partnerships that Brandy talked about. We now have case managers working directly with these folks. And the last thing I'll say before I step away and take any questions you have is that I've come to believe that you can't just say, well, you got to go get housing or you got to get off the drugs, you got to do this. You have to build trust with these folks. I'm the last person they want to see. I've been making their lives miserable for 22 years. But when you see someone like the folks at Loved One and Father's Heart that walk with them, that help them, that let them kind of dictate the pace, but are always there, and they work in partnership with law enforcement and criminal justice, we have a huge opportunity to make our communities safer. That's all I have, unless you have any questions of me.
For Marty, do you have behavioral requirements of your clientele?
Yeah, well, you hold them accountable to the behavior. Absolutely.
And if they don't behave according to your requirements, what happens?
They can't be there.
So they're out on the street.
They're not going to get services from us.
And they become a public problem. Okay, I just want to understand what that was.
I might comment, and then you may ask Brandy that question too. It's my understanding that that short sanction, usually it's a pretty short, you can't be here for the next day or two, is enough usually to change their behavior because they become so, in a way, indebted to what they get at Father's Heart and Loved One, that those short sanctions holding them accountable can change that behavior. We see that. We put people in housing and they don't stay, but we continue to work with them to get them back off the street because when they're off the street, it's a whole lot better from a public safety standpoint.
See, I'm certain that no one here questions your good deeds and the positive impact it has. But I think the people here that are here tonight want to know what's the impact on my community. So they're going to want to know about hours of operation and what happens afterwards. I've got a ton of questions when the time comes. And the questions aren't to denigrate the efforts. I think they're questions asked on behalf of the very people that are sitting here tonight.
Okay, great, thank you.
Okay, we're almost done and ready for any of your questions. So what's next? I want to introduce John Duke. John is our new executive director. He's been here a long time, about 3 weeks. And I'd like him to say a little bit about himself and then what we have coming up for the community.
All right. Well, I want to thank you, Mayor McGriff, and city commissioners for letting us speak tonight and give you an update on what we're doing. I am the new executive director of the Homeless Solutions Coalition. I'm really proud to be here. My background, I have over 25 years of working in the Portland metro area, providing social services and health services, community health centers. And I did a lot of work through that, developing services in North Clackamas, opened the 2 school-based health centers at Rex Putnam High School and at Milwaukee High School, and had my first experience working with Clackamas County law enforcement and the community court, working at the Clackamas Service Center, where the partnership there between the community court and the service center was very effective in providing safety and security, but in also helping to get the clients of the Clackamas Service Center off the streets and into housing and into productive living arrangements. And so through that experience, when I was offered the opportunity to come and work with this new organization, new as an organization, as a nonprofit, about a year old, but pretty old in terms of its members working in the community and coming to this point, I was really excited to be able to do that. I don't know as much as my peers about what has come to this moment, but what I do want to say that is very clear to me is that what is important in the work that we do going forward is that we listen to the community about what their concerns are and what their ideas are, that we are of the community, we are Clackamas County addressing a Clackamas County problem, and it needs a Clackamas County solution. And that can only come through participation of our community in that work. So to that end, we're holding community conversations. That's what we're going to call it. We're going to have a series of these across the year. The first one is coming up on February 27th. So at the end of this month, it's at the Pioneer Community Center, and it's from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. And our goal is to work with our community, and our target, what we're shooting for, is to make homelessness in Clackamas County and in Oregon City rare, brief, and non-reoccurring. And to do that, we need input from all the folks here tonight. I want to thank everyone that came here tonight, and those that are about to speak. I appreciate that you're here because we're all sharing the same motive. We're here because we care about our community. So I want to hear what you say. We want to hear what you say. And we also want to invite you to come to this community conversation on February 27th. We're going to have tables. We'll have some speakers present, as they have tonight, about some of the facts about the work that we're doing. And then we're going to break out into tables so that everyone gets an opportunity to bring their ideas and their concerns. So folks that are concerned about their neighborhood, concerned about safety, want to know questions about what are we planning, can be part of the planning, can be there and say, well, I'm concerned about this, or I'm concerned about that. And we'll take that information and we will make you part of the planning process through these sessions. And we're also interested in those people whose lives have been touched by homelessness. Someone in your family, maybe your niece, maybe your neighbor, maybe your coworker has had some incidents, brush with homelessness. Perhaps you personally have had a brush with addictions or life trauma that has put your house in an unstable situation at some point in your life, and now you're past that. Well, we need your wisdom. We want you to come and join us at this meeting and help us with that. So I'll leave it at that. I want to thank you for having us here tonight, and I hope we can answer any more questions that you have, and I hope that we can move forward together.
Want me to start?
No, I was just saying you have some questions.
I do, yeah. Okay, so first, and it may be good if the other speakers came up to the other table so we can have a full panel of people who can answer the different range of things. But first, that's what's most important to me is I'm curious to know what the hours of operation will be for this facility. I think there are many, or I know that there are many concerns in this community, given that this is not a shelter and that people will be coming and going to receive services. There are concerns that they will be coming here and then we don't know what's going to happen after they receive those services. Will they just be left to wander around downtown Oregon City?
Yeah, I'm going to let Marty and Brandy, because they're doing that work right now. And there's a lot said in that comment. And again, this cake is not fully baked. So there might be service providers in there that extend the hours that we're talking about. But we're not creating a year-round live-in shelter, their emergency service shelter. Now, I know there's other efforts in the county going on about shelter and about behavioral health and mental health. We're not a behavioral health and mental health facility. There's been rumors, there's a lot, we're not doing that. But do you want to address the hours you operate now?
So, again, half-baked cake, right? We're currently open Monday through Friday, 9 to 2. We do not have staffing capacity to be open more than that, nor does the building that we are currently in is able to support it. So I think a reasonable plan for us would be like a 9 to 5, Monday through Friday operation. But that's going to be contingent on our staffing capacity, our ability to have on-site security. We'd prefer to have it 24/7 and also add behavioral health support during all of our open hours. So there's a few components.
See, that's concerning to me, because you just said you'd prefer it to be 24/7, but in the slideshow that we just saw.
No, security to be 24/7, yes.
Yes, you said
Okay.
you would prefer that the security would be 24/7, but in the slideshow we just saw, it looked as though that was already a done deal, that there would be 24/7 security.
They have now.
Well, I think that's internal
It could be the
security, is it
same.
not?
It is, it will be.
I'm just saying that's a piece of it.
Sorry, I didn't hear that.
I'm acknowledging that's a piece of what we'd like to have, yeah.
But what I'm saying is that it sounds, I don't know, it sounds as though you aren't sure if there will be the capacity to have 24/7 security, even though that is the goal that was just presented to us.
We don't currently have funding in the bank account to cover 24/7 security today, so I'm not wanting to say that yes, that is a component that Dan mentioned that the Homeless Solutions Coalition anticipates doing. I'm speaking on behalf of Love One and Father's Heart and what we would like.
And yeah, I just wanted to flag that because I want it to be clear that what was presented is still things.
Let me try to clear that up for you, because we're not trying to say one thing and do another. Right now, there's a 24/7 security that's been obtained for the Father's Heart through a grant from the SHS funding of Clackamas County. It is our full intention to provide 24/7 security at this facility, the same as it's happening at the Father's Heart right now. Full intention. Now, that means successful grant applications or revenue raised to do that, but that is our full intention. We're not saying we do not want security in there. The other thing that we're doing is we're talking to the neighboring businesses, forming committees down there, just as we have here, and making sure that we have the people that are in the area talking to us about their security issues that they see. That continual feedback is needed, because that's how you address the issue. So that's the full intent.
Well, I appreciate that, and I want to pick up on something that was mentioned about collaboration and building trust, and recognizing the fact that to work with homeless communities, you have to be continually building trust with folks in order for people to receive services, and I absolutely understand and respect that. I just hope that equally with as much weight, we recognize that we have to build trust with the community and the business owners that are here, and it sounds like that's going to continue to happen. And there was mention of collaboration, and for me, I just want to voice my concerns about what has already happened, which is the fact that we had to hear secondhand from someone else about the intention to move forward with seeking SHS funds from the county. I feel as though, given that this is such an important issue, that it would have been helpful had we been aware that that application was moving forward. I recall the fireworks that went down just outside of Happy Valley, where the project that was also seeking funds from the county for services was tanked, and there was the courtesy given to that community to show up to the county commissioners and voice their concerns, and that same courtesy was not extended to the residents before this $10 million grant was given. And I believe that we were all blindsided by that decision until I had to hear from Councilor Christine Lewis on a personal phone call and then relay that information to my colleagues here. And so on the note of collaboration and building trust, I hope that moving forward and recognizing that there are more grants to be found and funds to be raised, that we can continue to be a part of those conversations, because I think that that's been the biggest frustration, is that we've had so many concerns coming in from residents over an issue that we have very little control over, if any, because of the state. And it's been difficult to answer those questions and concerns because we don't feel like that partnership and collaboration has been there with the city.
Commissioner Mitchell?
So I read the proposal that you presented to the county for the funding that you got. And Brandy mentioned it in her presentation that Father's Heart serves about 100 people a day.
Yes.
And I read in your presentation that you would be capable of serving hundreds, plural, of people per day. We obviously, as a city, don't have the physical resources or the funding to deal with 100 individuals per day. And specifically related to security, depending on funding, I realize, but chances are real good that you're going to be closed more hours every week than you're open. And I would also think, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, but even if you have 24/7 security, their authority ends once they leave that property. And if they're across the street, your security has no authority to deal with them. And perhaps Chief Davis needs to weigh on to this, or City Attorney, I don't know. But how can you help us as a city? We are going to have all of those closed hour and off-site issues to have to deal with. And I know it's not your intention to attract people, but it's also not going to be a successful facility if you're not serving more people.
Brandy, do you want to address the numbers that you serve now and what you might anticipate? Or Marty?
It's difficult for me to say how many people I would anticipate. Again, we serve about 100 people a day, and we've seen a continual growth of about increase by 10, say every 3 to 4 months. I think last year, toward the end of the year, we were averaging about 80, 85. So as far as capacity, for us, it's less about bringing more people in. Again, I know that is the rhetoric, but also that is the concern. But we're not looking to burst at the seams at a new building. I can't speak to when people go off the property at that location for now when that happens. Usually our staff comes and addresses it, or we partner with the police department, that sort of thing.
I think this is a really valid issue, number one. And number two, I think it's an area of cooperation that we can work together on. I think there's ways to brainstorm and think about, like, I think there's a private security firm that drives around the city checking parks. Maybe they drive around that center. Maybe we pay for part of that. I think there's ways that we can collaborate and cooperate to lessen that from a cost standpoint and a fear standpoint to make it happen. We're going to put in place cameras. It's a really interesting thing because nobody wants a shelter, but everybody wants the people off the street at night. Really interesting. You think this is, an interesting community tug to put our nonprofits who are already here doing their good work, just to putting them together, and we get a lot of misinformation about it? Pretend we're putting a shelter in there and with the community. Would they be for it now because we're going to keep people off the street at night? I'm really open to that kind of a discussion. I think there's other places a shelter could go, not in Oregon City, because I think there's a valid argument about, what else is going on in other parts of the county. But I think it's an interesting paradox for us to struggle with because they don't match up. They don't match up. But I will give you the commitment that we are 100% serious about safety and security around that. My business, I have a lot of businesses around there. I have probably more business around there than anybody. And I'm willing to take that risk. Because I think that we're going to put in place the right people and the right community effort and the right cooperation and collaboration to make it happen. But we've got to do something, folks. We've got to do something.
So let me jump in for just a minute. And Brandy, since you and I have been working together over the last 2+ years along with Marty, but Brandy's really taken the lead on that. So in the McLaughlin neighborhood, in our immediate area, we have, as Marty stated, we have a good neighbor agreement. It took us some months to hammer it out, but that's part of the cooperation and collaboration. And I took it upon myself. I'm not trying to take credit or anything. It was a collaborative effort, but the commission made a decision about a land use application. And one of the things we talked about, gee, it'd be great if we had a good neighbor agreement. So we worked on one. So the other thing we have, I won't say that everything is seamless, but it's working better than it has been in the last 5 years. The neighbors in the immediate area have, we have a call list where we call, where there's response, where there's action taken. Again, one of the things that our neighbors basically said was that they wanted security, and I agree with what you said, Michael, about, yes, if they step off the property, but we also have been working collaboratively with the police. So if you had talked to us, our neighborhood 5-6 years ago, and said that we would be at this point, most people wouldn't have believed it. And there's been a lot of frustration on both sides. But we've been able to sit down and work through it. And so we have a shelter advisory committee. We meet about every 2 to 3 months. We've met more often if we have an issue we have to solve. But obviously, as you know, we don't want to call meetings for things that we don't need. But I really believe that it's working. The neighbors are less stressed at this point in time. And, you know, again, it's always hindsight to say, gee, if we'd done this, you know, when the thing opened, we wouldn't be here today. But, you know, sometimes things don't always work out the way we want. But I firmly believe that, that there was going to be a path to get to a conversation where people could sit down and say, this is really my issue. And people in our neighborhood were very frank about some of the things. Now, we have people who are having issues that are further away from this particular facility, and those are not necessarily the clients of this particular organization. And there's not a whole lot we can do about that other than to tell people they need to call emergency or non-emergency, whatever it needs to be. But at least what we're dealing with in the immediate blocks has been working. And I committed to working with whatever table there is going to be to talk about what are the elements that are needed for a good neighbor agreement. And I think that we can probably improve upon the one that's already existing, but I have experience that this one would have been my third one that I've written and worked on. And I worked on the men's shelter in Portland, and it's in a business district, an industrial area. So that's the expertise that I'm going to try to bring to the table, at least to get some points down to listen. So did I accurately portray kind of what our relationship is with the McLaughlin neighborhood?
Yes, absolutely. And I would say we've benefited from that in ways that I wouldn't have expected, and that it gives teeth to us being able to talk with people and say, look, we have this agreement, and in order for us to be good neighbors, these are the expectations. And so when people are not meeting those expectations, they're either given a timeout, or a trespass. And in some cases, people aren't allowed back for services. But it gives us really the teeth to be like, these are the expectations for us to be able to even offer these services.
I want to say to the public that it's not perfect, but it is an avenue to get to further discussions about what needs to be done. And that's the thing that I hold out optimism for, is that as long as we're able to sit down and talk about it. And, you know, it wasn't all sunshine and roses. There was some yelling going on.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so.
Good stuff.
Thank you, Mayor. I truly believe this as a lifelong resident of this city. I do not believe that Oregon City is an anti-homeless services community where where we want to see no services here, no way, no how. That's at least not what I want. I recognize the fact that we do need those services, that those services already exist here. And I also want to acknowledge the fact that that there is so much goodwill coming from behind this proposal. And you already got to what I was gonna say, Mr. Fowler, which is that you have a vested interest in the success of this, this project, given your businesses that are in that area. And so I want to acknowledge that. But I also want to say, what I think is unique about Oregon City is not that we're anti-homeless services. What's unique is that we're sick and tired of what seems to be a county-wide and region-wide problem of seeming to be like an Oregon City solution. We're sick and tired of reading in the news, I think it was last summer or the summer before that, reading about Malala City Council wanting to shut down one of their service centers because, quote, they can just go to Oregon City. I think what's unique about Oregon City is the fact that when groups for Project Turnkey were wanting to request funds from the county, that was not even in the city limits of Happy Valley, mind you, that residents had ample opportunities to voice their concerns and flood the rooms of a county commission meeting, and that when a service center is being proposed in Oregon City, on our main street no less, that we're completely blindsided by that. And so I just want to clarify that I think every single person in this room who has concerns about this project is absolutely supportive of making sure that our homeless population gets the services that they need. It's just that it's felt like over years and years and years, that Oregon City has become a place where it seems like everyone else can dump their problems, and that's what we do not want this to encourage and enhance. And so I just wanted to point out a few of those key differences because we often hear the term not in my backyard, not in my backyard NIMBY. And the problem is it's already in our backyard, and it feels like it's continually being added to our backyard at the expense of other regions in the county where other cities are not doing their fair share to address this issue. And I appreciated hearing from you, Brandy, about the work that you guys are doing in Milwaukee and Estacada in the rural areas, because that is some really good information for us to know, because again, it feels time and again that we're just being pummeled with this issue, and it's something that we as a city just cannot continue bearing the brunt of.
Can I tag on to that?
Yeah, I would agree. One of the things that some of you know or don't know, that I started working for the city back in May of 1988, and our community development director at the time, John Block, said, and I've quoted this many times, every city in Clackamas County needs to step up and do their fair share. And I hear that repeatedly echoing in my head every year that I have lived here. I happen to belong to a group of mayors that meet online with Chair Smith. At our last meeting last week, she said, how's everybody doing? And how have you come through the ice storm? And this is what I said. Since most of the other mayors were on the call, I said, what did each of you do in your city to help people in your community by opening a shelter? I said, we had one at the college, and I said, I didn't see any of you guys stepping up. So of course, Mayor Pulliam from Sandy said, well, we had our facility. We were the only two that spoke up at the meeting. No other cities did anything, and I basically said, this is our problem. You are not stepping up, and I challenged them. I said this to the other mayors on the call, and they're Clackamas County mayors. Chair Smith acknowledged, she says, that's a very good question. She said, what did you guys do? Now, you know, a lot of the mayors in this county are talkative, including myself. There was dead silence on the call. I'm not kidding. I was not happy. So this has been something that I have been dealing with since I moved here.
Yeah.
It's the same question that keeps coming up. I've asked my colleagues in other forums where there are mayors, what are you doing? Do not, tell your police people, do not bring your people here. Do not drop them off at Father's Heart at 2 p.m. because I've seen some of my neighbors have told me this, and drive away. And I won't mention the cities because I don't want to throw any of my fellow colleagues under the bus, but boy, I'd sure like to because they need to be pointed out. So do you guys have anything else to present so we can get talking to folks? It's almost 8:30.
The only thing I would say is if there's any questions about what else is going on in the county or the area, there's maybe a way to get that answered.
Yeah.
But
So, yes,
we hear that.
Yes, I'd like to hear that.
I'd like a turn.
Okay, please have a turn. Is Vahid here?
Yes.
I think
Okay, if
there's
he wants to
somebody-
come up after Mr. O'Donnell, he can talk about what else is going on.
Yeah,
I'll
and
give you about 5 or 6
we
minutes
mentioned
to do
hub and
that.
spoke, and I totally agree with you. I really do, both of you. And I'll just say that, you know, if there's been any excitement in getting a grant submitted and a lack of communication with you, I apologize for that. I'll say for the record, we're submitting for a state grant. We've asked for some letters of support from the mayor, chief of police, and Tony Conkle if they're willing to or if they're approved to. It's a $2 million asset we're working with our state representative on. And then there's some other private foundation grants that we're submitting for, but we're a nonprofit organization. We submit for grants.
Mr. O'Donnell.
First, I'll say I agree with everything that's been said by my fellow commissioners. Second, I want you to know that this comes from somebody that was homeless for a period of time, and except for the kindness of a friend, I would have been in a bad situation. So I understand that component. I understand what you're doing. I understand why. My concern is, how does that impact my community, and how does that impact Oregon City? So you're saying that you're offering, I'm going to talk about your services, you're talking about case management, peer support, treatment and recovery support. Do you have professionals in mental health and substance abuse that are going to be in this facility?
That is our goal, is to bring the partners
Goal, but
on site.
not yet accomplished.
We haven't signed any agreements with
Okay,
them.
all right. See, the fact is exactly what's been said here. There is no other community that has a brick and mortar facility to accommodate this, none. And if you talk to our other peer communities, and I will leave their names out, if you ask them if they have a homeless problem, they say no. Well, here's the situation. You know, I'm going to go back and forth. There's a cost to these services, and that cost is being absorbed by Oregon City. And you really can't, if you seek financial compensation from others, because as was said, security ends at the door of the facility. When they leave that facility, they become the challenge to deal with of Oregon City and its police department and its social services. Oregon City is already incurring costs associated with this. And I think the chief could speak to those. We have a homeless liaison officer. And I don't know, I think we're partners on a mental health thing, I think.
Yeah, we have mental health specialists.
So
and we
we're
also have a
already
caseworker.
absorbing costs that are not being subsidized by other communities. The danger of asking for funding from other communities is we're the solution. Send them to Oregon City, take them to Oregon City. That's not what we want. And the fact that the hours of operation are limited, and at that point they're discharged to the general population, what do they do then? So, you know, what does a neighborhood do when that occurs? You know, because if other cities do contribute, they'll feel they can use it. So the sources of funding almost need to be so widespread that they're contributed to by other cities. I don't want them to make a claim on use. And we talked about the hub and spoke arrangement. Well, Randy spoke about that, but it sounded like it's a very small component of total services offered. Maybe it's the laundry or whatever. But do you outreach? Do you meet with people in other locations and give them mental health treatment, give them drug and alcohol abuse, substance treatment? We cannot be the sole location to provide these. It's a regional problem and it needs a regional solution. There's much you said tonight that rings true. I mean, even the courtyard is much better than having people stand around on the street. But you know, Oregon City's not exactly well, you're already standing out in the rain. You can do better inside a courtyard. The impact to communities and the cost borne by Oregon City needs to be reviewed. And sadly, this is a fact, and I don't say these things lightly. Oregon City incurred a 40% increase in petty crimes like thefts and car prowls with the advent of the influx of the homeless population. And I don't want to have to deal with that in spades. You know, I do feel that at some point, this facility is going to have to contribute to local security in that neighborhood. And if that means that they call a sworn officer of the law and deal with it, that's fine with me. But I cannot have my police department absorbed with those problems where other areas suffer. So I think there's a lot to be said for it. I hope it's successful. I know I can't stop it, and I know we're at the mercy of the state. I'm trying to look through my notes. I mean, you said a lot up here. You know, I applaud your successes. I know that homeless goes over a long series of those who want to be helped versus those who don't. And the troublesome ones for the community are those with substance abuse, drugs and alcohol, and who want to live a life outside the law. And the others, I'm sure you're more successful. Those are the more demanding. And I hope you have the professional facilities because, as Mr. Fowler said, the job of this facility is to provide a place for these others to come and provide those services. But again, my concern, my only concern, is the impact to my neighbors, to my town, to the cost of my town, to the impact of those who surround the facility, to the town in general. So you need to succeed, and you need to succeed mightily. And I think we need to talk about potential restrictions we'll put on if they apply, but we're not here to make you not succeed. You succeed, we all succeed, and I'll leave it at that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Commissioner O'Donnell, can I comment? And something that Commissioner Morrow touched on is, and this isn't, I appreciate your comments deeply. Oregon City has the DHS office, the jail, the courthouse. Like, we know all of those services and how that impacts us as well. And something that we've been working with our partners with the DA's office and parole and probation. So we do have our treatment and recovery partners and some of our mental health services go out to those places to provide those services in those communities so that we're not bringing people here for those. But the other thing that we are wanting to roll out, and Judge Gilmartin is very interested in this with community court, is offering community court out in the rural communities. Because what we were hearing from local law enforcement in those communities is oftentimes the deputies or the officers, depending on the city, how they're run, is that when they have to bring someone into the jail, often those folks are cited and released before the deputy or the officer is even done with the paperwork. And so they're still stuck here while folks are already back in the community. And so how can we alleviate that burden on law enforcement? And so what we are proposing and working on is how we can get community court out there so that all of those things can be addressed in those cities and not, those folks are not having to come into Oregon City for low-level offenses. And so that's just a piece of how we're kind of brainstorming and working on how we can mitigate some of those realities.
And that would be a good decentralization of services.
That's right.
Well, that's,
Yes.
That's right.
that's part of the hub and spoke concept.
Well, as explained, it didn't go into the detail of those types of services.
Yep. Yeah.
No, I agree that I would presume that people who are having issues would prefer to stay in their own community. They don't want to come here because they don't know our community. And the best place to receive services is that. And as I told the mayor in this rural community, I said, you're shutting down your facility. Your people don't want to come here. They want to stay in your town and get their services there because that's where they live.
Right.
So we don't have any issues as a community of serving our homeless population, which is people who are here, as you stated, people living in cars, families, and that's unfortunately, that is increasing, as you stated, and I'm aware of that. That scares me. And then we have the whole homeless youth issue, which is, that's a whole nother topic. But
It's a whole nother
again,
topic. Yeah.
we've said this over and over again. This commission is concerned about livability, and we have to do our part to take care of our people, because they are our people. They're not the other people, which is what I keep hearing a lot. It's those people. Well, folks, those people are our people. Now, Malala should take care of their people, Estacada, Sandy, whatever. So,
My great fear as a former law enforcement officer.
yes, it's the easy way out.
When we had facilities to take people to, like Damish, is we just took them there and dropped them off. And I don't want that to be, I don't want
not the
Oregon
default.
City to be that default solution.
No, we are not. I did speak to another mayor. They're considering a camping ordinance. And their task force came up with a solution that basically said, well, let's put it over near the Arch Bridge because then they'll be able to go to Oregon City. And I said, that's not happening. I said, that is not happening to that mayor. I said, I will come to that task force meeting and I will just tell them simply that that is completely unacceptable. Your town needs to take care of your people, and they do have homeless people there. I've seen them. So Vahid, can you give us like a Cliff Notes version, and then I want to get to some people, and then we'll take a break.
Yes, thanks, Mayor McGriff. Mayor McGriff, Commissioners, my name is Vahid Brown. I'm the Deputy Director of Housing and Community Development for Clackamas County's Health, Housing, and Human Services Department. I know you have a lot of community members here wanting to give public comments, so I'll just be very brief about the larger county strategy, and I'd be happy to return to the Commission to provide a presentation in greater depth about our countywide strategy. But we definitely take to heart and hear the voices that you're kind of raising here around meeting people where they are and needing a geographically equitable distribution of services to meet people where they are and to provide housing services in their communities. We're committed to that. We've made a commitment to having a geographically equitable distribution of services in our local implementation plan for the Supported Housing Services Program. That's showing up already in a lot of ways. We have the first now for about a year and a half, the county's first coordinated street outreach program that has 7 contracted providers. Father's Heart Level 1 is one of them. We have many other providers that do street outreach all throughout Clackamas County. So we already have nonprofit organizations that are funded with supportive housing services dollars. Well, they may not have, through those outreach programs, a brick and mortar facility in every community. They have boots on the ground in every community in Clackamas County, connecting with people experiencing homelessness and helping them move off the street into permanent housing. That includes a law enforcement assisted diversion program with Central City Concern in partnership with the District Attorney's Office and the Sheriff's Department to connect with people who are justice involved, who are experiencing homelessness, and again, bring trained mental health and addiction recovery specialists as street outreach. These are certified alcohol and drug counselors and qualified mental health professionals that are going alongside sheriff's deputies to connect with folks. We also recently released a solicitation that asked for cities to step up. And to speak to what the mayor said about that recent meeting with the mayors and the chairs after our ice storm experience, we asked cities to step up. We said we have funding available, $5 million set aside from the Supportive Housing Services Measure and other funding that we can dedicate to rural communities. And we asked cities to please collaborate with us. What do you want to see in your community to meet these needs? Because I think we recognize that we will best meet people's needs if we bring those services to their communities where they're experiencing those needs. We met with virtually every one of the 16 cities in Clackamas County over the month that solicitation was open. It recently closed, and I'm really happy to say that most cities in Clackamas County applied for funding for programming in their communities. So we're seeing a greater level of interest in expanding these types of services across the county, and it won't work. We want, our commitment in Clackamas County is that homelessness is rare, brief, and non-recurring in our community. We're making progress. In the last 2 years, there's a 31% decrease in the number of people counted on the point-in-time count night in January. Since 2019 to 2023, there's been a 65% decrease in that number. That's significant progress countywide. We have a 23-hour stabilization facility opening in Milwaukee that will serve people with high acute behavioral health needs, that will have place for sheltering of people experiencing homelessness. We received recently a letter of support from the city of Malala for a resource center, a supportive services resource center in Malala in partnership with Ant Farm that identified a property they wish to purchase with a grant similar to the one that we granted to the Homeless Solutions Coalition of Clackamas County for this resource center. So we are committed to expanding the footprint of our ability to meet people where they are and serve them in their communities. And we were heartened by the response we got to the city-led initiatives request for proposals. We got a lot of them. And those are a variety of types of programs, but over the coming months, we're going to be entering into conversations with each of the cities that applied, including Oregon City, about meeting these shared needs across the county in a county-wide effort. And as I said, I'd be happy to return and provide greater detail.
We appreciate that.
So how do you propose to educate those potential users, like other police departments, that these other facilities will be available, and it's not, well, let's just run them in Oregon City? You can take them to our local facility. How are you going to educate those potential people who are looking for a resource? Namely, our protective services people are probably the most likely to encounter that.
Yeah, thank you, Commissioner. We have close partnerships with our law enforcement agencies throughout the county. We meet with them regularly. We spoke with Chief Davis about the city-led initiatives effort. I spoke with Marcus Mendoza this morning about our efforts to connect outreach with law enforcement agencies when they encounter someone experiencing homelessness. So we do have good collaborative relationships with our community partners that will allow us to get the word out that there's a new resource that Ant Farm is operating in Sandy or Malala. There's a new program that we're funding in Wilsonville or whatever it may be. So we're, in order for it to be successful and for people to know about the services, we got to get the word out. So you have our commitment to leaning into that.
Are those things occurring in our local communities, like across the river, West Lynn, Lake Oswego?
Everyone.
Yes,
They're occurring everywhere.
There are, every available venue we have to share information about the existing programs and services that are available for people experiencing homelessness or who are at risk of experiencing homelessness. We take the opportunity to spread the word. I have gone to the retreats of the Clackamas County Coordinating Committee every year for a number of years. I provide updates on our programming to the mayor's meeting that Mayor McGriff spoke about. We regularly provide presentations to city councils. As I said, we're talking to the chiefs meeting, to local law enforcement agencies.
All right, I appreciate all that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'm going to call people up 2 at a time, and I'll give it the 2 people that'll be behind them on deck. So you will have 2 minutes, and Jacob will have the timer, and when it goes off, which is really loud, you're done. So William Gifford, Paul Edgar. And then on the next on deck will be Debbie Brent and Sarah Lambert. So be ready. Not yet, but just be ready. So William. So name and city of residence, which, well, we know, but please just repeat it for the record.
Commissioners, my name is William Gifford, and I live in Oregon City. I just want to let you know that I support this idea. These are our citizens. We need to support them as well. And there's a lot of people here that have more to say.
Thank you. Paul? Jacob,
Yes.
you have the timer going, because I can't see it.
Thank you. I'm Paul Edgar. I live in Oregon City. I've been involved in homeless issues for probably about 10, 15 years, and I'm an advocate for finding solutions. This morning in the Community Action Board of Clackamas County, we had a major presentation for about an hour, and it was on drug and alcohol abuse and addiction and what we can do and how we address it. Also, we've had major presentations that I've sent out to you on the community needs assessment that you should all review it. We should have a formal presentation made to the city commission on both the addiction and on community needs. We know that 60% of the families in Clackamas County currently cannot afford rent, food, housing, and insurance. 60%. That's critical. But we also know that if we have people with addiction and we bring them into a place, it was even said this morning in our meeting that we have a great hole where when they come in, we put a Band-Aid on, we let them out the door, and the Band-Aid falls off. A lot of time, energy, and money is gone. What we need are secure shelter areas, beds, roofs that are operated 7/24 and supervised. We need that in Oregon City. We need that in multiple places around the county. That's my opinion, because once we get somebody, we have a brief moment when we can create this relationship and have a potential to maybe make headway. But if we don't do this in a continuum, we will lose
Paul,
the battle.
you're done. Thank you. All right. Debbie, thank you.
Hi, I'm Debbie Brent, and I'm a citizen of Oregon City, and I'm a retired police officer from the sheriff's office. So I just wanted to say quite a few things. I already appreciate the homeless services that we have in Oregon City, and I've lived in Oregon City for at least 30 years, And when I first got to Oregon City, there were only a few known homeless people, and it has exponentially increased in at least the last 10 years, like exponentially. And some of that is because we have good services here in Clackamas County, and so we are drawing from other communities. And the homeless are already sleeping and camping in Oregon City, and there definitely is an increased crime rate in Oregon City from that. The problem is I appreciate this, what we have here, but bringing a giant center here is drawing homeless from other places. And the poor police and everybody are already overtaxed, and they aren't gonna get additional funding to take care of this stuff. There's no money for housing. There's no ordinance in place to solve any problems that they're having with the homeless. And so basically my concern is that you need to build this homeless shelter and homeless center in places where the homeless are already, instead of drawing them to places. Oregon City is a small town. We're not Portland. We can't handle the influx of giant homeless populations that will come here with a giant center like this. And we've already said the 24-hour security is not for the city of Oregon City, that's for their building. And so that's not gonna help. And then the crime's already rising. The other thing we need to know is this is a different population of homeless. Other states are sending us their homeless. Felons from Illinois and California are both giving bus tickets to our state. So we're gonna start drawing those people to Oregon City.
Thank you. Okay, before Sarah starts, Carol, you're up next, and Tim Mack. Please go ahead. Thank you so much.
Hello, my name is Sarah Lambert. I'm a resident of Oregon City. Thank you for listening to us today. This makes me a little nervous, so I'm just going to read what I typed so that I stay on track. So I'm here tonight in opposition of this homeless navigation center, per se, being erected in downtown Oregon City. I know tonight you're going to hear a lot of testimony from concerned citizens who don't want the homeless to come and overwhelm our downtown district, to bring more crime, more drugs, and more trash with them. I'm concerned about these issues as well, and I too could share my stories of experiences dining in downtown Oregon City where homeless individuals have come in, hearing stories from my family members of being harassed at their jobs and tips stolen from their coffee shops. But what I'd like to talk about is, where will the homeless live once they get here? The streets of Oregon City are not an appropriate place for anybody to live. I'm concerned about the homeless women in particular, who will now be forced to make the trip to Oregon City for services to then be put out on the streets once the doors are closed. It is my understanding from things that I've heard that once this center is open, all other services in Clackamas County will cease to exist and will operate through them, which I hope I'm wrong on. But reading the proposal that was sent to the county under 5.3.2, the project description, at the bottom of the page, it does say, after listing many of the things Father Hart and Loved One will assist with, it says, in short, a quote, one-stop shop of services, education, and learning will be provided in this center. So that makes me to believe that perhaps what I've heard is true. This means everyone in Clackamas County area who experience homelessness will have to come to this one area to get services. Seems to me that this action will actually lessen accessibility of services to many individuals. I know what it's like to support individuals who are very vulnerable in my career, individuals who struggle with mental health and with addiction, and my heart goes out to everyone struggling with these issues. I am absolutely not against helping the homeless population.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Carol.
Hi. I really appreciate...
Just have to give your name for the record.
Carol Earl, sorry. I really appreciate all the comments that the commissioners made and the mayor made. I share many of your concerns, and my husband and I own a business on Washington Street, and we can see the Miles Fiberglass building. So we're not right next to it, but we're one property away. And so our concern is the impacts when the center shuts down and these homeless individuals go off-site. You know, what is the police staffing going to be available? Will the police have enough funding to deal with all the homeless that leave the center? And what will be done to ensure that our streets and our parks don't look like Portland? And the surrounding businesses, if the homeless, the theft is up, camping, trash, basically what I'm concerned about is the off-site impacts of the center. I really appreciate what they want to do, but I think that any approvals that come from the city, there needs to be requirements put on the developer to help mitigate some of these off-site impacts. And like they're saying that they get grants, so will they be able to get a public safety grant to help mitigate the impacts of the homeless as they leave the facility? That's essentially my concerns. I thank you for your time.
Thank you. So I just want to clarify again for the audience, this is not a City of Oregon City initiated project. Understand, this is not something that we are proposing. So when you ask us to do something for a project that's not our project, it's kind of hard for us to do that. Not our project.
But you're permitted.
It's allowed, office use is allowed, as you heard earlier, in the zone.
Right. But you can't put any requirements on this at all.
We'll come back to that. We'll repeat that again. So to make sure that everybody hears it. So I'm going to go to Tim, but thank you.
Thank you. My name is Tim Mack. I'm a citizen of Oregon City. I am also very concerned about the location of this homeless service center, so close to the historic downtown area of Oregon City, an area going through tremendous revitalization of Oregon's first city, such a historic gem. I own and live in a home near the corner of 15th and Madison, just about as close to the proposed location as anyone, less than 1/4 of a mile and a 5-minute walk. I can see that building from the back of my house as well. Now, I'm no stranger to helping and supporting my community. I've spent most of my career in nonprofit organizations, including 20 years at OMSI downtown Portland. Virtually every day, I witness firsthand the harm done to the livability and viability of the area due to the effects of the rampant homelessness, trash, garbage, so forth, constantly present, and the lawlessness that threaten good, honest, tax-paying citizens and our rights going about our daily lives. Homeless Service Center attracts homeless. That's their goal, as Commissioner Mitchell mentioned earlier. And those people have nowhere to go after their visit. As Brandy Johnson mentioned, I heard her say in the forum held back in April that those clients will simply be back on the streets at night after the center closes. I also have concerns about public safety, as 15th Street is the main thoroughfare right by this location. Very busy with cars coming down the hill to access the 99 and the 205. A significant increase in pedestrians at that intersection is almost assuredly going to result in more harm to persons and property. Finally, putting the name Clackamas County on it will attract homeless from the 1,900 square miles of Clackamas County right to our doorstep, within 1/4 mile of my home where I live with my daughter. And I am no stranger to hardship and trauma. I know something needs to be done, but how many of these county commissioners and employees and people behind this live within 400 yards of this location? Please find a more suitable location with a $20 million budget. That shouldn't be difficult.
Thank you. All right, up next is Charles Kidwell, Linda Kidwell, and Kevin Islin. And if you say something that somebody else has already said, just say you agree. That's fine. Go ahead.
Who's first?
You.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. My name is Charles Kidwell. I reside in Oregon City, and I'm part of a group of Oregon City residents and business owners in opposition to the proposed navigation center. We're not insensitive, but we're realistic. We are promoting a petition against the navigation center, which currently has over 2,400 signatures. We are very concerned about the proposed navigation center because of the potential negative impact to the businesses and residents of Oregon City. Serious problems around other similar homeless centers have validated our concerns. There's a high incidence of mental illness and drug use among this population, which often leads to negative and violent interactions, which is well documented in recent media articles, which we've provided copies of. The service centers do not solve the homeless problem, but rather they enable it. Best intentions have failed elsewhere numerous times. The homeless center offering free services actually becomes a magnet to many homeless people, resulting in criminal activities and other public nuisances. This has also been documented. The homeless people that come to Oregon City Navigation Center will have no place to live once they arrive, so they will likely join homeless encampments around our city. We urge the Oregon City Commissioners to deny any approvals, permits, or funding for this facility. And we believe a more suitable location outside of Oregon City should be found. Thank you for your consideration and for the comments that you've already made.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Linda Adler-Kidwell. I've lived in Oregon City close to 50 years. I have concerns about the Navigation Center that is proposed to be operated by Father's Heart as a homeless service center. My main concerns are demand for police and emergency calls increased significantly after Father's Heart came to Oregon City. More incidences requiring police and fire responses due to activities of homeless people will likely diminish protection of tax-paying citizens in our community. Emergency services could be compromised. According to the internet, the homeless center is open 9 a.m. to 3 p.m. They have no place to stay at night at the Navigation Center. Nighttime is when many crimes occur. What is expected to happen with homeless people on the streets without a place to stay? Giving homeless people who are drug addicts everything they need enables them to live on the streets instead of helping them to change their lives. I have copies of articles about troubled homeless navigation centers in Oregon and other states. I have given them to the recorder. These articles deal with local businesses and frustrated resident taxpayers. They demonstrate that proposed center is not a positive plan for Oregon City. The Navigation Center is not a solution for the homeless issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Before you get started, Kevin, thank you. Macy, since I messed up your name to begin with, you are going to be last. So come on up. And I apologize. My name is spelled a little differently too, so I get kind of crabby when people mess it up. So anyway, Kevin, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor and McGriff, Commissioners. We've all heard tonight.
Name, member.
Oh, Kevin Elsison,
Yes.
live in the McLaughlin district here in Oregon City. We all know and we've all heard tonight that we're dealing with a very tough societal problem. And the word societal is important in that because it means there's no one person or one group or, an easy way to say, blame them, they did it. And what that also means on the flip side is there's no simple solution. We can't just say, you go, change your behavior, you go fix that. So we're living with something that is a tough, complex problem to solve. That isn't unique. There are tough, complex problems to solve all over the world. Now, when you're living in that, when there is no easy solution, it's human nature to say, what's the thing about that unsolved problem I need to fear? And we've heard lots of fears tonight. And I acknowledge them. Fear's real. Every single person has a reason to fear that particular thing they said. Now, just for fun, and Chief Davis, I'm not slighting the organ. You know what I fear? 30 years ago, I got hit by a speeding, hit and run speeding while I was walking. So I fear every time somebody goes up 7th speeding. Now, the solution to that, ban all speeders from Oregon City. That's an easy solution. Nobody who's ever got a speeding ticket can ever drive in Oregon City. That's what I'd like to see. That's never going to happen. So why are we here in Oregon City? We want to be a community that is demonstrating leadership in solving a tough problem. That means it's not going to be solved tomorrow, it's not going to be solved next year. But if we get the benefit of showing leadership, if we have passionate people like you heard tonight working to make the community better, they will bring what we didn't talk about, they will bring money into our community. They will visit our restaurants, they will visit our businesses. We need to see how that increases our taxes, not just our costs. And that's what we should want to be known for. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Madam Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Macy Tisdale. I reside in the McLaughlin District. I would like to thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. And most of all, I wanted to come here with education about the services that the nonprofit is going to be providing. There was a meeting held in April of 23. The meeting was very enlightening, and I believe each one of you have a passion for this project, the people that you serve. Each of the members have shown a deep personal connection to our community, and I learned a lot from the presentation, giving clarity to my own unanswered questions. I appreciate your exuberance and willingness to help and passion to give these people a better story to their lives. My family has chosen to make Oregon City our home for our 3 children since 2018. We have grown to love the community and most of all our neighborhood. We live on the outskirts of downtown and would like to point out that our house is going to be one of the closest single-family residences that's going to be near this transitional facility. And we were not contacted at all to be able to voice our opinions about any of this, nor the Red Hat or Felt Hat organization that they hired to contact the businesses. My concern for the homeless population has grown over the last 4.5 years. My neighbors lived at the property for close to 20 years. There's been a unification in our neighborhood. We're all doing our part to watch our properties. We have had multiple occasions of people sleeping in bushes, people who don't live on our street, checking out our properties and having to ask them to leave. Clothes and trash are piling up in our surrounding areas. The foot traffic of homeless people has dramatically increased. With those, those with mental or addiction issues are commonly seen by our children. Multiple people have been taking up residency behind my house and every one of my neighbors, also on the spare lots that surround our houses. Other instances include a man walking up to my moving truck while screaming at me and my kids in downtown Oregon City. Recently, the most recent ice storm, there was a lady on the sidewalk that lived there with all of her belongings.
Yep, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay, we have exhausted our list for the moment, and it is, I've got exactly 9, so we are going to take a 6-minute break, and then we'll come back to the meeting. thank you, everyone. So I'm just going to ask for staff to come back up because there's some things that they said early on. I know a lot of people aren't here anymore, but I want to reiterate. So number one, we had a number of people express concern about us denying the facility. I wrote that down many times. And so we explained earlier, there is nothing for us to deny.
That's right. Oh, excuse me, that's correct. So if a use is permitted, the way that comprehensive planning and zoning works is that it's called an administrative review. A use comes in, it has to comply with all of the codes that are in place at the time. So this is just in general. So if an office came into mixed use downtown, they were an office, they would have to comply with all the codes in place. They would go through the building permit review. There's no other discretionary review. Basically, we've done all of the pre-work for those permitted uses when we've done the comprehensive plan and when we've done the zoning. We've looked at the type of traffic that would be generated and other off-site impacts, and we've looked at mitigation for those permitted uses.
So the other thing that was mentioned is that if the current services move into the building that are already here, that the services that are being provided at Father's Heart, I think this person was understanding or thinking that other services that the county is offering are going to cease if they open this facility. Now, that is not my understanding that the county is closing down any of their buildings or facilities or their mental health or any of the other things they're doing. So there are, in my understanding, there are no services that are currently being offered by the county that are going to cease to exist if this resource center happens. It's only the facilities that currently exist that they are utilizing. That is my understanding. Is that correct? Right here, I see people in the back row nodding.
Right, so that's not something I can comment on.
I'm looking back at them, but I'm looking right past you. So again, this is how rumors get started. We had a lot of concerns about, again, off-site impacts. That's not a really question we can answer at this point in time. So again, I appreciate the fact that there are people who don't want this and it should go someplace else. Not sure where the someplace else is. But again, permitted uses in any jurisdiction, not just Oregon City, are allowed outright in a particular zone. We don't get into the details of what that use is. If it meets the general category, it's allowed. So our hands, as we've explained before, our hands are a bit tied, but we don't have the ability to say that this resource center can be here or not here. That is not an authority that we as a jurisdiction or any other jurisdiction in this state has, because we have been preempted by the state. And that's kind of the bottom line at this point in time. I mean, I appreciate everybody that has come out and expressed their concern. I get that. And does anybody else have a question for Aquila? We can let her go off the table. Okay. And I'm going to take just a moment to make a comment. And this is, yes, and I know I sit in the mayor's chair. I received one of these at my house. I received several of these at the nonprofits that I help manage and volunteer at. I will say that I was very disappointed in receiving this because it's fear-mongering. I know obviously a little tiny bit more than most people, because all my neighbors were calling me, what is this? Is this real? What I said, the other thing that bothered me, and I told Charles Kidwell this, there's nobody's name on this. Who's taking ownership of this document with some of the inaccurate information on it? And this is me personally. It's like, if somebody, in my opinion, if somebody feels strongly enough about something, they should put their name on it. And I did go to the little QR code that was on mine and looked up this stuff, and there were some anonymous people on there making some edited statements. So I guess I can say I was just kind of disappointed. This does not help. And I appreciate what Kevin had to say. He's a neighbor. We can't lead by being fearful. There are many things in our community and elsewhere that we all don't like. But as I said earlier, we as a society tend to look at other people and label them as those. I don't want to be like that. I don't want our community to be like that. If there are people in our community that are our people, we need to help them. I'm not sure exactly the best way to go. This is not my area of expertise. But please try to keep an open mind about things, not just this, other things, because we're all in this. We're all concerned about this, all 5 of us. It's not like we're sitting here doing nothing. We're trying to be informed. We're trying to navigate through this the best we possibly can. I don't know if the commission is going to be amenable to us sending a letter of support for a grant that they're proposing. I haven't asked them that question yet. But I know that we can't stand still. I know that we need to work together. And as I said earlier, this is not our project. This is not something that's being initiated by us. It's being initiated by others, but it's in our city, so we are concerned about it. And that's kind of just where I want to leave it. So we will continue, and I hope people will come to the meeting. It's February 27th, correct? What was it, 6 to...
6:30, I think, or
6:30, yes, 6:30 to 8:30.
Pioneer Community Center.
And at the Pioneer Community Center. And I challenge people to come and try to work on whatever their issue is to see if we can come to some collaboration, some, not everybody's going to win. It's not a win or lose thing. We have to work together. So, gentlemen, what do you say about the consent agenda?
Mayor?
Yes, sir.
On the agenda, I'd like to
Yes,
suggest...
we are going, I'm going to get through the consent agenda and then we're going to move that item up.
I'm going by the order on the document here, which says adoption of agenda.
Yes. So that's where I am, and then we will move up item 9B. So is there a motion to approve the consent agenda, or does anybody have anything they want to pull off of it?
We're going to move another item too.
Yes, we'll move the other item as well. Let's just get through 7 and then we'll get there.
I move to approve the consent agenda.
Second. Been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
And Mayor Denise McGriff.
I didn't hear it. He forgot who he was.
And Mayor Denise.
Who I was. Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, so we are going to, we're down to 8, and if we can move item 9B up and also item, where are we? 10B, sorry. 10B. 10's on the other page, so 10B. So we will move both of those items up, and then we'll get to the other items later. Okay, so we have, oh, there he is. I was going to say, where's the lovely and delightful Mr. James Graham? And I couldn't quite see him because this thing is too high, and I was sitting over there. All right, so on the next item that we're going to take up is a discussion. And I'm saying this again, this is a discussion. This is not a decision. There's not a hearing. It's not testimony. I have some people who want to make comments. So this is a discussion of establishing a destination marketing management organization. This is continuation from the meeting we had previously, and there will be many more discussions about this particular item. So Mr. Conkle.
I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mr. Graham.
Well, good evening, Commission and ladies and gentlemen. I'm very pleased to have to hear this input from the public because we've been discussing DMOs for a little while. Just for the record, DMOs, just in terms of a definition, just to make sure that everybody's clear as to what it is. A destination management organization is usually a nonprofit, a 501c3 or a 501c6. And it is usually a board of directors involved with an executive and staff that provide marketing support to the tourism industry within a community, the overall tourism community. DMOs can provide support, funding support to events, conferences, education and training to for-profits and nonprofits alike in order to promote tourism. I'm sure that we have a number of individuals that like to make public comments, so without further ado, I'll turn it over to you, Mayor, to entertain those comments.
Okay, I'm going to do the same thing we did for the previous items. So when I call your name, I'm going to come up, and you will have 2 minutes. And I will cut you off just like I did the other people. So I'd like to call up Lowell Gillespie, Jerry Herman, and Cheryl Rice. And again, we are not making any decisions.
Yes, my name is Jerry Herman, and this is Captain Lowell Gillespie, and I'm going to be really quick. You have a handout that you're given. I believe you're recorded to that shows what our summary comments were. I'll just be brief about that. The most important thing was the picture of 10 companies' vessels that are in Portland. There's no place in Oregon where 10 companies assemble their commercial vessels for tourism except in Portland. This man has operated every one of those vessels, and he helped you all, those that were willing or not willing, able, about a year ago, to have year and a half ago, to have a tour to Willamette Falls, Willamette Locks, and so forth. So the reason I'm here, we're supportive of a DMO if it's going to address all aspects of tourism and not forget river-based tourism. The plan 8 years ago did, the plan 5 years ago did, and we're here to say that if a DMO is to be pursued, which does make sense, the cities that have them have good river-based tourism, if they have a DMO and a river. You have the river. So I'm going to let Lowell just tell you a few things about his commercial activities.
All right, well, thank you. My name's Lowell Gillespie. I've been a captain on the river going on 32 years now. I started out as a young man being a salesman. Come to find out, being a salesman wasn't the best reputation a guy could have because there was always some kind of problem. So I decided to be a contractor and build houses. Well, I built houses so fast, the neighbors thought they must be cheap because it went up too quick. So I didn't really like being a contractor either and wound up buying a cruise ship. Took a bunch of people for a ride. They gave me a bunch of money and shook my hand and said, thank you. Like, holy smokes. So that happened over and over again. Well, I seem to really like this job. And I like taking people out, having a good time. Oregon City is such a good place that you have so much.
I apologize, you're out of time.
Beg your pardon?
You're out of time.
I think we've got to reset it. He's got like a minute left.
Yeah, that seemed awful short.
Did I have additional time?
It was at 2 minutes. I was watching it on my side, so.
That's fine.
All right, the other part of the whole
Jerry?
thing, did I have additional time or not?
No. 2 minutes.
Yes or no? Okay, yes, the whole thing is you got the biggest dock,
Jerry,
commercial dock in Oregon.
Please, everybody else has kept to 2 minutes. You had your 2 minutes.
Take a look at our handout.
Thank you. Yes,
Thank you.
I appreciate your sending that in advance. I actually did have time to read it because I got it earlier than at the meeting. Sorry, Cheryl, I didn't want him to butt into your time.
That's fine. My name is Cheryl Rice, and I live in unincorporated Clackamas County, but I do volunteer for several heritage organizations here in the city of Oregon City. I'd like to thank you this evening for giving us the opportunity to address this issue, and I do want to express my appreciation also for the organization, the 3 DMOs that you had come to the work session the last time, because it was very informative, and I really appreciated the time. I personally wholeheartedly support a plan that will finally develop Oregon City into an amazing tourist destination that it can be. As a member of these heritage organizations, I know that the implementation of a tourism plan will be very well received. I would hope that using the 2 previous studies that Oregon City used and had done at much expense and time for all those involved will certainly be taken into consideration and use the roadmaps that they have put forth in their plan, not just jumping straight into a DMO, but really looking at that roadmap that will really bring us to where we want to be. I want to thank you this evening for the opportunity and most importantly, to be a part of this discussion and decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Cheryl. Don Scott, come on down, please.
My name is Don Scott, and I'm a resident of Oregon City. I wear many hats, as many of you know, but tonight I'm here on behalf of the Oregon City Heritage Coordinating Committee, a collaborative group represented by all of the heritage properties in the city. And we've been working pretty diligently to come together and do events that are promoted across all of the properties. We have studied we've attended the work sessions. We've studied both of the previous plans that were adopted by the commission. And I want to share some concerns from that. We've had much discussion in our group on this topic. The first one is a DMO the best starting point? Both of the prior tourism strategic plans identified the need for developing a strong foundation as the first step. In the 2018 plan, it states, first and foremost, Oregon City needs to establish a governance structure and create the capacity necessary to drive the strategic plan. The other plan mentions the same kind of thing. The issue is the properties that are the asset need to be destination ready before we start promoting it, in our opinion. Measuring success is vitally important. I come from the private sector and ROI is important. We know with one hotel, occupancy is not going to be it. We would encourage you to consider in the budget for this the cell phone data that was discussed at the last work session. And I guess I'm out of time.
Is this something you can, if you have it in writing, is it something you can submit to us?
Yes.
Okay, that'd be great. Appreciate it. You have a question if you...
I don't need to call anybody back up, it's a commentary.
Go ahead.
Your comments are well spoken, well taken. I looked at the previous plan, and quite honestly, we've not succeeded in even what we set out for ourselves. We set out for ourselves to build tourism leadership capabilities. These are tourism imperatives in the plan. Tourism imperatives, must do. We did not build tourism leadership capabilities. We tried and we're not successful. I think we've enhanced the brand with some advertising. I'll give us that. But we did not. We're not able to coordinate tourism assets through collaboration. And there's many reasons for that. And they don't all reside with city staff. They reside with some of the participants that should have collaborated. But this needs to happen for success. Again, these are identified as imperatives, must do. We wanted to cultivate and curate a portfolio of experiences. To that end, we did not include the river experience. And quite honestly, and Mr. Herman, I attended a meeting with Christine Lewis, our Metro, Jerry Herman, Lowell Gillespie, the captain that was here, Dennis Corwin, who's instrumental in the Portland Spirit line, and Reed Wagner. And I believe, Mayor, isn't he instrumental in the blocks? Reed Wagner.
He's our executive director.
Yeah, he's our, and what we tried to do is tie in the use of the Oregon City docks as a standoff area while you're waiting to pass through the locks. And also the Oregon City dock, the John Storm dock, as a location where we could bring commercial river traffic and disembark for land-based cruises. And the information Jerry provided, they're nice pictures, but they don't tell you anything. We have two things we need to overcome. We need to make sure that the structural capabilities of the John Storm dock will accommodate the vessels. And there are vessels that are possible good choices. The Crystal Dolphin is 84 feet, and 91 tons, and the Willamette Star is 93 feet and 174 tons. The limitations on the dock right now, by agreement, are 60 feet and 40 tons. So we have to make sure that structurally it can take these larger vessels. So there's a lot of work to be done, and it needs to be a component, and it's been an unstated component in the tourism plan. And I have no interest in hiring one more expert to review it. We know what we need to do. Let's get busy. But the first step on these docks is exactly what I said: verify its structural integrity and what can it handle, and decide if we are limited to the 60 feet that we signed on to use for commercial. And that's all I'll say about that. I want to do a more thorough presentation than the two speakers did. Thank you.
Well, I don't disagree with what you're saying, but I think that is at the 1 foot level, and that's not where we're at. I'm not interested in this point in time in talking about docks when we need to have the structure in place. I think Mr. Scott basically said it, is that the governance structure needs to be put in place. Then we can talk about the components of river, yes, needs to be a part of it, but to start talking, we're up here, and to start talking down here about we need to do such and such at the dock, we need to get, as you've said this over and over again, and I support you, we need to get the infrastructure of this, whatever we're going to call it, in place first before we start trying to plan bringing people to town on the docks or doing all this other thing. The other thing that you mentioned, and you said this so many times, we were unable to build the tourism leadership. Yep. We had a staff person that was assigned to do that, and it didn't work. And I agree with you that it was not in part of the failure of us, but it was about everybody being a little bit more concerned about how much money they were going to get, and there was not the collaboration that was there. So we still have to decide what we need to do to put this in place. And then we can start drilling down. I don't want to start doing a dock for something that we don't have the infrastructure in place.
The only reason I'll disagree with that is it's not a linear process. If I do one and then I wait to do the other, I say move them forward in parallel.
I agree with that.
Get your assets ready. We've always, and as the gentleman just said, get your marketable assets ready for market. And we didn't do that. No. So I say do them both in parallel.
I think there's a way we can collaborate and do that. So, Mr. Graham, no, that's the end of it. So, you're asking us where we need to go next. Is that correct?
That's correct. Although we've provided recommendations, we've given you a lot of material.
Yeah.
And we've provided recommendations, but obviously, of course, the final decision is yours.
Yeah, I went back and thank you for sending not everybody's had a chance to read the whole thing again. I just went back to the highlights of the things that Commissioner O'Donnell talked about. And I guess part of my question to you, staff, is how do we take those things that we know need to be done and try to put them into some sort of implementable plan with a structure so that we can get it done? Because I kind of see that, my high level thinking about the DMO or whatever we're going to call it is that it is going to be more of a process to get the things that we need as opposed to a grant funding organization, which that's not what I think the DMO would be doing. The funding that comes elsewhere is other things that we're doing in the city. I mean, we've got the tourism little thing, and we've got the event grant, we've got this grant, and this grant. I don't see that that's something that this organization may or may not be doing. So how do we move forward, taking in consideration the things that we know that weren't accomplished and combine that to move forward on multiple fronts, as Commissioner O'Donnell has stated? I guess that's what I'm struggling with. I don't think we've made decisions about A or B or whatever, but there's so many options that I guess I'd like to see us maybe hone it down a little more so that we can put our arms around it instead of having everything.
Well, one way to start this whole process, we have to think about the legal format of a DMO. So I would recommend that we work on the legal format of the DMO and appoint just a small committee of individuals that will work with staff to put in place the legal format. We will do the research to determine whether it should be a 501c3 or 501c6. Now, last time we heard from the three, all of them are 501c6s. But you can be a 501c3. It comes right down to how you organize it. Now, it just so happens that I'm working with an organization. I'm on a board of the Oregon Economic Development Association, and they've decided to do something of the same thing for the state organization. And so they've decided to go with the 501c3 for a variety of reasons. But to answer your question, and let me finish that thought, because as a 501c3, in their case, it provides them a lot of options for funding, not just the government, but also funding from foundations and other entities that a 501c6 would not have access to, because the funding is limited for a 501c6 in some cases. So I would say, first of all, we need to focus on the legal framework. And so I recommend maybe 3 or 4 entities that would work with staff to develop the legal framework. And then once we have the legal framework, go from there. Now, the 3 or 4 individuals that you may appoint, I would recommend that they basically be de facto members of an eventual board of directors. The board of directors could be 9 people. The 3 people that will initially, in this recommendation to work with staff, would simply be members eventually. They would morph into the organization, but they very well could be representative of important elements of the tourism industry in Oregon City. But that's how we can move forward.
I guess, gentlemen, the question I have is that, are we supportive, we're not in a work session, are we supportive of moving forward to create a destination marketing organization? Not getting into whether it's a 6 or a 3, but at least at that point. And I thought that that's what I heard you all say at the work session, even though we were not taking a vote. Is that something that we would be supportive of?
It was my understanding that we preferred that we went with a brand new organization. We didn't bring any existing baggage to the future development, and we moved on. And for the general public's information, a C3 organization is not for profit. A C6 is a for-profit organization.
Thank you. I've mostly, over the several meetings we've had on this topic, I've mostly been in listening mode, and I've really appreciated hearing from the people who have been coming to give public comment, but also from the board of experts that we were able to come and get here. My reservation with this whole process has been that I worry that we'll get too bogged down, us as a commission, by trying to prescribe every single individual thing we want to see happen, rather than instead commissioning a group of experts who can then decide that for themselves, because that's what they live and breathe. So rather than us having more meetings with people in the audience listening to us, I would rather us be the ones listening to them, having that discussion, that a group or a board, as Mr. Graham just talked about, that can hash out more of the specifics. Because I agree with what Commissioner O'Donnell talked about with the river tourism, and Mr. Herman and so many others about the river tourism. I think before that, we need to make sure that we have the governance in place that is separate from us, because there are experts who know this a lot better than we do. Obviously, we need to have a liaison on there who makes sure that the city's interests are being heard and being spoken at those meetings. But in the end, I would like to move forward with figuring out who we can get on this board or committee or blue ribbon, whatever you want to call it, so that they can be the ones to get the ball rolling without being overprescribed by us as to what it has to be.
Well, I agree with you. I don't want to overprescribe it either, but we basically said, yes, we think we need to move forward with this. And I guess I don't want to create a big, gigantic committee. You've recommended 3 experts, and I think that's kind of the way we got to go. And I agree with everything you said. To set the framework, get the governance structure in place, and then move on from there. Without a good foundation, we'll end up in the same place that we've been the last few times. I'm looking at you.
Okay.
Speak, please.
I'm just, in my mind, I'm wording what I want to say.
Okay.
I'm going to make a motion that we direct Mr. Graham to create a RFP, and I can't believe I'm going to say the word consultant because I'm not. Ouch. I know, it pains me.
How about a desirable outcome?
I don't think we have the expertise to establish a DMO or what the legal structure should be. So I'll go back to the motion. To have Mr. Graham create an RFP for a consultant to help us, to guide us in the establishment, how we establish a DMO and the board of directors and what the legal structure should be. Because I think we've talked this thing
Oh, I'm done talking. Yeah, I'm hoping
in
tonight
circles.
we're
What
moving forward.
you said earlier, there was only a discussion. I'm done discussing.
Yeah.
I think we have
I'm
consensus
going
up
by
here
the agenda.
that a DMO is the way to go. I think we've heard almost entirely from public comment that a DMO is the way to go. And I know we have heard from public comment, let's do something now.
We have some people that are not supportive of the DMO. That's okay. For the purposes of discussion, I will second your motion, but I have a question for you. Do we need an RFP? I'm not suggesting you name the individuals, but you're suggesting expertise, of areas of expertise. Could you elaborate on that, those areas of expertise that you would bring in with these 3 people, 2 people?
Well, there would be individuals who are experienced in creating a DMO. One of them very well may be the county, for instance. But there will have to be, you don't need an attorney to do this. But there is there are groups out there that you can contract with that have a good relationship with the IRS, which you have to be concerned with. And then all the guidelines and all the requirements of the IRS that would be able to help establish, guide the group with establishing legally the DMO per the IRS requirements. That's what we recommend you start with. Once the IRS approves the 501c6 or 3, then you proceed from there. But obviously, you have to start from a legal framework.
Yeah, I would agree. I actually filed paperwork to create a 501c3, and the IRS, oh, Lord, that's all I can tell you.
And so did I.
Yes, go ahead.
So, my concern is what if we do some sort of RFP or create this group to deal with the legal aspects of it? Are we at least setting them up to the expectation that, one, this is a new organization that is not, meaning if we get 3 partners together and they come back to us and say, oh, we decided it's going to go under this umbrella because I'm from this group. That can't happen.
No.
And it can't happen. Even if we have some county representatives, they're going to gear that to the county tourism. I mean, this has to be its own thing. And so I'm skeptical about finding a group of 3 people that are going to come in without some direction that we don't want to go.
A bias or something.
And that's my concern. That has happened already. That's what happened with Clackamas Heritage Partners. We have to, so yes, we need to start, we need to move forward, we need to go. How do we do that and assure that, that starts off on the right foot? And I'm not sure that's the way. I mean,
the RFP.
Well,
And I hate the word, I hate the, saying we're gonna hire another consultant too. So how do we deal with that? What guardrails do we put in when we say, go forward, this is what we want you to create?
I got a simplified solution. Start with a desirable outcome. What's the outcome you want? I want a successful tourism industry. Then you say, who can help me with that? Well, people that do these DMOs. Okay, you put out a very simple request for proposal, and then they come and they gather your assets, and they do all the work, and they say, here's what we propose. They can bid it on that basis.
I was going to say, the one benefit about going with a consultant to help with that process is that we sit here and have this conversation and they watch this, right? And they're going to come back with, okay, how do we make sure that it is representative of the entirety, right? So that, you could imagine something coming back with, we recommend that the structure of the DMO look like this, and that the board makeup look like this, right? And then you get to review that and say, yes, we agree, or no, we don't, right? We think we should switch out this board seat for that board seat. I think, it's a way to get to your concern of by bringing in an outside neutral consultant who does this and can say, here's the 5 versions, here's what this looks like in different jurisdictions, and put something together that works for us and for the commission.
Would it not be smart to reach out to the ones that have already done the other 2 pieces?
Yes.
Yeah. Agreed. And they may send it to the Coraggio group, I don't know.
Right.
So, yeah, I think we're, yes.
Because we have existing information.
Right.
I mean, using existing information, maybe as amended to include river travel. Here's our desired outcome. How should we go about it?
Yeah, okay.
And in terms of establishing the DMO, it's neutral best practices out there. Because it's not going to get to river tourism or historic site tourism or whatever. The structure, and it's not dependent on what our assets are. Right. And that's part of the reason why I suggested, as Mr. Conkle said, an independent outside voice that's going to look strictly at, here's the best way to put together. Here's pros and cons to 501c3 or C6. Right. Here's how your board, here's models on the best way the board can operate. And it's a neutral voice and not anybody with an axe to grind.
Well, I don't think it's the axe. I think my gut feeling of the problems with previous outcomes is that people were carving turf. And that's part of what the problem is. So let's call for the question.
What I don't want is a committee of 15 or 18, because that's chaos.
No, we are not doing that. We're not doing a blue ribbon committee of 15 people that. No. Okay. So roll call, please.
Commissioner Adam Morrill.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
So we'll prepare a draft RFP and bring it back to at least have a discussion about it to make sure it kind of meets what you're all thinking or addresses any concerns that we may have missed from this conversation. Is that reasonable enough?
And it turns out we did make a decision tonight, even though we told everyone we weren't.
Well, we told staff we asked staff to do something. We didn't tell them, we asked them to do something.
Sometimes you got to move the ball.
Yeah, all right. So let's move on to item 10B.
Mr.
Remand process review, the icon application for Park Place Crossing. Okay. Another favorite topic of ours.
Good evening. We included this staff report to basically lay out the process for what a remand would look like, a remand hearing, because I don't think we've actually processed a remand, and we don't have anything set out in code for how we would go about doing it. So we just kind of wanted to set the table for what's coming up. So the purpose of this staff report was just to review that process, and it's based on an October 2022 denial of a master plan for a general development plan. It was appealed, the applicant appealed it to LUBA, and LUBA then issued a decision which remanded it back. Ultimately, back to the city to make a decision. What Luba said is that we can only consider clear and objective criteria when we're reviewing this master plan for housing development. So that's part of what's been included in the staff report, is just to give you an idea of what's going to come before you and the criteria that staff are going to be looking at. What our expectation from the applicant is that we receive an application, not necessarily a new application, but they originally applied with the city in, I think, July of 2021, and there were multiple planning commission meetings and city commission meetings where they gave us more and more and more material. So our request of the applicant was to put something together that is somewhat concise and not relying on months and months and months, years of material, so that we can all move through that review. So we haven't received that yet. They do have 120 days. We are under the 120-day rule from the time that they initiated their remand. They initiated that at the end of December. So at this point in time, that 120th day is April 27th. So within that time frame, what we tried to lay out is the ability to have multiple city commission meetings. Ideally, we would start that, assuming that we have materials in time, we would start that review March 6th, at your March 6th meeting, and kind of progress from there. Ultimately wanting to wrap that up on April 17th, and that's including all of your regular meetings. That's not looking at adding any special meetings. If we can get a final decision on April 17th, then we meet the original 120-day deadline. So that's the process that we've laid out. At this point, we will start talking to the applicant about extending that 120-day deadline, because we don't have that compiled version of material to look at. So the first meeting may be March 20th, but I can't promise anything at this point. So that was really the intent of this, was just to kind of lay out how that process is going to unfold.
So is the term clear and objective defined anywhere, and are we prepared to give a response to the proposal that meets clear and objective? Is it actually defined, or is it like pornography, you know it when you see it?
The term clear and objective is not defined in the state law, but has been developed through cases over the last 25, 30 years. It has been in the statute for a very long time. What changed is that it used to only apply to affordable housing and government subsidized housing, so it didn't apply and when a city needed the housing. But because we're planning for housing, the city didn't need the housing. The law changed to make all housing needed housing. And that's what made the clear and objective obligation applicable to all housing.
That actually brings my second question. You've seen the letter from Mr. Nacita.
Yeah.
Said that only applies to housing only. Is that a correct interpretation of the law as you see it?
I think that my preference would be to not get into the merits of this review right now, because we will have, as Ms. Hurd-Ravish pointed out, a number of public hearings to talk about the substance. The reason why the staff report included our sort of staff's take on the criteria that we think will not apply is that it's our first take. People in the public hearing are going to have a full opportunity to argue that we've got that wrong. And I don't want to sort of start that now when we're not in a public hearing to talk about that.
Okay.
So the 120-day clock is running even though we have no amendment or revised application to review?
That's correct.
Well, we have an application. There is an application before the city on remand. Absolutely. What we've asked the applicant to provide is a
is amendments or changes that they want to propose and to sort of package it up so it's easier for everyone to understand. If they elect not to do that, we can't force them to do that. We're going to review the application that we have on file.
And we were basically directed by LUBA and the Court of Appeals to get to yes.
I think that we were directed by the Court of Appeals to apply the clear and objective criteria and allow the applicant an opportunity to amend their application if they choose. And we're doing that right now.
It's not necessarily to get to yes.
Who is the judge of the applicants when they apply? Do they have to meet the clear and objective standard, or only our response has to meet that? Only our evaluation of what they say?
Their application has to satisfy the clear and objective standards
That are in our code.
that are in our code.
And these were defined by somebody else
What is clear and objective or not?
in our code.
I think it's going to be determined by LUBA's precedent evaluating to what degree our criteria require the exercise of discretion. If they require the exercise of discretion, they are not clear and objective.
So like, for example, one of the criteria that was crossed out, the proposed general development plan is consistent with the underlying zoning district in any applicable overlay zone or concept. So the discretion, is it consistent with the underlying zoning district, right? So versus a more clear and objective standard, which is measurable.
Required open space shall be located either on-site or off-site within 1/4 mile of the development. We can measure 1/4 of a mile from the development.
Okay, well, again, I don't want to get into the merits of this because I can tell you right now, my head is exploding. And I'm measuring my words right now because there's a lot of things I do not agree. And that LUBA doesn't give a damn whether I agree or not, but this is, I will save it for the later meetings. So what is our next steps?
I think this was an information item.
So our next step is to wait for the stuff to come in and then
We'll notice it consistent with the code, and you'll be before you in the next couple of months.
Okay. So, please.
I'm just, it's 10 o'clock, so we have to make a decision about the next hour.
Yes, we will. I am very aware what time it is.
So let me get this straight. The clock starts when they notify you that they're going to make application? We've not received an application.
No.
But the clock has started.
The clock started when they sent us a letter, sent the city a letter asking that the city take action on the remand. That's what started the clock. So now we have to take action on the remand consistent with LUBA's decision. We have asked the applicant to provide us their amendments now so that we can move that forward. They have indicated that they will do that. If they don't do it, we're going to move forward anyway because the clock is ticking.
Right, because theoretically, they could have submitted exactly what they submitted the last time.
Right.
And that application is still active because it's been remanded.
Right. Okay. So I'm just going to say this. So I am not going to call you up because your statement is contrary to what our attorney said. We are not going to get into the merits of this case because we can't, because there's nothing before us. So I would hope that you will hold your comments at a time when we can actually discuss this, because we can't. You cannot speak from the audience. Sorry. You've been in this chair, so you know what the rules are. I understand that. Stop talking. You are out of order. Not from back there, you don't. And I have not called you to come up to speak, so please sit down. I understand that. Please sit down. I need to talk to our attorney. I will ask you to be removed from the room, Jim. Don't make me do that.
Remove me.
So,
Another First Amendment law, Madam Mayor, remove me.
I asked you to please sit down so I can talk to our attorney.
I submitted a card, I have the right to speak.
It is at our discretion. This is not a public hearing. So you stated that the letter, which I also read, gets into the merits of the case. I have concerns about getting into the merits of the case when we do not have anything before us, and I'm concerned about anything prejudicing the process. We're already dealing with something that's somewhat controversial to begin with, so I have a concern. If he has something to say that doesn't get into the merits of the case, I don't have a problem with that, and I would ask my fellow commissioners to agree with that. But if we're getting into the merits of the case, I think we're on shaky ground, and I think we're in trouble.
Well, and we can let him know that once he is speaking. I would prefer that we err on the side of letting him speak
I
first.
understand.
And then,
I'm going there. If you would give me a moment to get to the question I've asked the attorney, and then, yes. So give me another moment. So would you please answer my question?
This is not a public hearing to consider the substance of this proposal. This was a briefing to the commission about an application that is going to come before you for review. I do not believe that Mr. Nacita has a right to talk at this time. It is up to the commission to decide whether or not they want to hear testimony on this matter.
I will ask, that is my next step, was to ask the commission if they want to hear what he has to say, as long as it's, I'm caveating, because we do not want to get into trouble in talking about the substance of this case that's not before us. It's not a public hearing. So how do we proceed?
If we allow Mr. Nacita to speak and he honors, if at any time our attorney says he needs to cease speaking, if he would abide by that, I would not have a problem with it.
exactly.
Can you do that, sir? You have to honor that. If at any time the attorney says, please stop. Okay, I would let him speak.
That's what I had suggested.
Okay,
Yes.
well, that's where we were going. Okay, are you okay? Yep. All right.
Will this be a
do you
three?
want- I didn't call you to come up, please, yet. So we are going to allow for a comment.
For how long?
Is that what we said in the past 2 minutes?
Yeah.
Everybody else has been 2 minutes.
Okay, all right. So there's a consensus so please come up and address the commission under the condition that we stated. I have no desire to deny you to speak, but I don't want us to get into trouble legally.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Madam Mayor, Commissioners, James Nacita, Oregon City. So I think here's a way forward without speaking to the merits. I think there's a process question that I would recommend for you. I think given the gravity of what you're going to be confronting, I would recommend a proactive legal memorandum for the following meeting from tonight, your second meeting in February, to really drill down on the question of the merits as to whether clear and objective standards apply to elements of this proposal that are not housing. So that would, if the hearings aren't going to be till March, you could still, in the second meeting in February, have a legal memo at your disposal that addresses the question sufficiently and in sufficient detail where you can have confidence to say to the applicant, these clear and objective standards are only going to apply to housing, but they're not going to apply to parks or to roads or to commercial.
Understood.
I think I think you owe that to your citizens, because the precedential weight of what you are going to be deciding on this is going to apply to Beaver Creek, it's going to be applied to the South End, and whether you're going to have concept plans at all. So I would confront the problem proactively and not leave it to happenstance or haphazard arguments. Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate your wanting to be proactive, and that's something that I've already talked to the city manager about. And just to explain further, the reason my head is exploding is that the planner hat went on, and I'm looking at this and I'm trying not to scream about it because of what was said in the case. And it was, to me, it was fuzzy math. That's all I'm going to say about it.
Back to Commissioner
Comments?
Smith.
Yeah. Is that an approach you think is reasonable or crazy, or I don't know?
Just take
I have a hard time, I would have a hard time putting together a memo in the abstract.
Sorry, what?
In the abstract.
Right.
We don't have an amended application. I don't even know for sure what the application is going to look like. So to tell you what criteria are going to apply to a proposal that I have yet to see would be a little bit difficult. And I also think that because, as we talked about, there is no definition of clear and objective, there is going to be disagreement. People are going to argue this point from all sides. And I think that for me to proclaim what I believe that staff will make a recommendation as part of a staff report, just like we always do. And I'm not sure that it makes sense to do something different in this case. Yes, it is controversial. Yes, a lot of people care, but many land use applications are controversial and people care. So that's my response.
Take that under advisement. Where to come.
I would think I would think this argument about what's clear and objective is going to potentially become an issue that is going to be appealable. So I would recommend that you incorporate it into the actual process, because as Carrie stated, we're going to present what we believe, what we think is consistent with the direction we've received based on how our code is written, being applied to an application that we have in hand that you're going to review. Everything's going to be on the table for public comment in terms of reviewing what our recommendation that potentially becomes your decision is, which means, especially in the land use world, right, that whether you're for, whether you're against, you're going to have that opportunity to raise these issues during the public hearing process, to which then you're going to make that decision based on what that public comment is and the recommendations that we have. I agree with Carrie. It feels like, we're teetering on these land use decisions without actually having a land use hearing around them. It's really uncharted territory. I mean, I get it. We all wish we didn't have to go through this and try and pick and choose from the code. This was really to try to just explain how we foresee moving forward with a remand, with a time clock that we have imposed on top of us, with direction. So I think the comments are great. Appreciate them. Not, probably, agree with a lot of it. But I think we have to make sure that we're consistent and fair in how we walk through this process, right? That's why we have a process. It brings a little bit of order to the chaos. So I would prefer to rely on it.
I want to make sure I understand. So what you're suggesting is that our decisions are going to be which requirements we believe are clear and objective or not, and which portions of the application clear and objective standards have to apply to.
I would think all that's going to be on the table.
It's all on the table, plus most importantly, whether or not you find that the criteria that you believe are clear and objective are satisfied.
Right.
If they are
Right.
satisfied,
Right.
then you approve the application. If they are not satisfied, then you condition it to make it comply or you deny it. So we have to identify the criteria that are clear and objective, and we have to apply them to the application that is before us, just like we do in all land use cases.
Okay, thank you.
Could we anticipate that we may have another iteration of this? It goes through the same process again? It goes a little bit, it gets kicked back a second time?
Correct. That is
Okay.
correct.
So my question is, would any of these governing agencies make a decision on the question of what applies, does clear and objective apply to residential housing? Apply to the project in total? That's the question that has been raised. Are we going to incorporate that question in our presentation?
We are.
Not as a separate?
That wouldn't be my recommendation.
Okay, I just want to
And
understand.
to your question, is there somebody else we could ask? I think the answer is no, because we can't ask for advisory opinions from the Land Use Board of Appeals in advance.
You have to submit it as part of your case.
We're going to make a decision, and then
They
if
come back
it
and
gets
say, no,
appealed,
your interpretation is correct or wrong.
correct.
Good.
You know what we need to do, so before I ask for a motion to end our time, my question is, not that I want staff to make more work, but how can we get the other concept plans? That's been my concern all along once this got appealed. A lot of people spend a lot of time on the Beaver Creek plan, a lot of people spend a lot of time on the South End plan. I do not want to see those plans get hijacked because we don't have clear and objective standards, whatever those might be. So can we, in our spare time, take a look at those and see where we might make some tweaks?
Yes, we can. We've started doing that with the balance of the Park Place concept plan to begin with. Some of that is in place for the Thimble Creek concept plan, so we can apply those similar concepts to South End as well.
I mean, the big issue for me is we have a lot of people who spend a lot of time trying to determine what they wanted their communities to be like, only to have somebody come in and just take the whole thing and take a shovel and say, oh, I'm sorry, what your community thinks doesn't matter. What I get to do matters. And I don't want that to happen. So we need a motion to extend our time. How much more time do you want to go? We've got a few more things. We've got some very simple ordinances we need to pass. I think we can get that done. Can we get it done and have the discussion about the 4th of July in 15 minutes?
I don't think I need a discussion about the 4th of July. Do you think we can clear some of these things off the agenda in a timely manner?
Okay, can we go 15 more minutes then?
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we're doing it.
10:30, drop dead.
All right, let's move on to, thank you, Jim, for your comment. We will do the best we can, and I will talk to you offline about the other concept plans. So on our agenda, item number 8, going back to the top of the pops, we have a second reading of ordinance 23-1010, adopting the Oregon City Loop Trail Refinement Plan into Oregon City Transportation System Plan and ancillary document of the comprehensive plan. I'm not going to read the thing. We have a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call.
No, I
She's
got
got to read it.
Just to read.
Oh, please read it.
Ordinance number 23-1010, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City amending the Oregon City Transportation System Plan by adopting the Oregon City Loop Trail Refinement Plan.
Roll call.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, item 8B, first reading of ordinance 24-1002, approving text amendments to the institutional district to allow recreational vehicle parks as an allowed accessory use for the Clackamas Park under code section 1739.030. Is there a motion?
Move to approve.
Public hearing?
Oh, open the public hearing. Anybody here to talk about it? No. Close public hearing. Let's have a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay. Roll call.
Oh, wait. Ordinance number 24.
She read it already.
I'm sorry, what?
No, just go ahead. I said I read it already.
You did, but I think I
I know.
need to
Read it. Read it. Thank you, Pete. That was a great staff report. Keep up the good work.
Ordinance number 24-1002, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City approving an amendment to Title 17 zoning, Chapter 17.39 of the Oregon City Municipal Code to allow a recreational vehicle park for Clackamas Park as an allowed accessory use within the I institutional zone district, and an amendment to the Title 17 zoning, Chapter 17-04 of the Oregon City Municipal Code, and to add a definition of a recreation vehicle park.
Roll call.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Mayor Denise McGriff.
All right, general business.
I didn't get your,
9A, second reading of ordinance 24-1001, adopting city code amendments for
You
regulation.
didn't get your vote.
Oh, I said aye.
Got it. Motion passes.
Okay.
Regulation of rubbish, construction hours, garage sales, graffiti, and parking. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the second reading of ordinance number 24-1001.
Second.
Ordinance number 24-1001, an ordinance of the City of Oregon City revising the city code municipal code title 8-20-160 scattering rubbish and prohibited actions, municipal code title 9.12.023E construction hours, municipal code section 9.12.045 garage estate and yard sales, municipal code title 9.12.050 graffiti removal, municipal code title 10-.08.090 prohibited stopping, standing, and parking.
This one can't get passed fast enough. Roll call.
Commissioner Adam Marl.
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell.
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell.
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith.
Aye.
Mayor Denise McGriff.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay, city manager report. A, McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Project update. Hope you've got a PowerPoint ready.
Oh,
We do have one of my more lengthy PowerPoints, so I'll get through it pretty quick.
dismissed.
All right, so this is, sorry, that was a little loud.
It's the hour and everybody's punchy.
I'm here to talk about the McLaughlin Boulevard Enhancement Project. We've tried to get this in front of you a couple of times, and I'm thankful for the extra time. I know you guys had a long agenda tonight and lots of things to look at. Really, this, well, one thing I want to say about this project, because it's been a bit confusing, is that the, thank you, Sean, the project limits started out with a description and went from the 99E tunnel to 10th Street. That's still officially kind of where the project team is looking at, but just for lack of confusion, the project limits on this are really from Tumwater Village to 10th Street and on the riverfront side, but on the interior side or the downtown side, we go all the way to the pedestrian tunnel that crosses at the railroad crossing. So just keeping that in mind. Also wanted to remind you that, you've seen it in your commission package a couple of times, the actual report that I wanted to cover. And this was really just an update about public involvement. And I just kind of want to acknowledge that there's a lot of comments in there. If you haven't looked at them, I hope you get a chance to look at them. It's also an opportunity because we've missed several opportunities to get you to share your thoughts on this particular project. There will be another opportunity. We're coming back to you in March. So with that, I'm just going to kind of quickly go through this. So great to have a team with the resources and capability to inspire some community interest and build enough interest to get several to actually produce some survey responses. Kittleson, HDR, and OC staff, including Dana Webb and Christina Robertson-Gardner, have done a great job making sure we had meaningful materials available in many forms. We've done a blog, Jared helped us with that, and pretty interesting video that I think a lot of folks, we got a lot of interest out of that. So I think as far as public involvement effort, we've done a good job with that. I hope you agree. We've got some statistics of the survey responses in the next slide, but we received a lot of great comments, especially appreciated, I did, as I read up the comments that were more focused on the proposed alternatives than reminders about maintaining through traffic or parking. While we know that's important, the feedback we were kind of looking for was regarding the concepts themselves. And we got plenty of that kind of feedback as well. Also, a fair amount of comments about cleanup along the existing path, which I totally appreciate and understand as well.
So the purpose of hosting the open houses like this is not to select the option, but to understand the issues that matter to the people. The design team and the city commission will use this information to evaluate the alternatives and determine which ones are both feasible and generally supported by the community. But if there's a significant divergence between what the community wants and what is being proposed, that survey helps us kind of figure that out. And for the most part, we felt pretty good about the results. So at this point in time, or when we finished the survey, we felt like the public felt pretty comfortable with the technical analysis, and we thought that was good feedback. When asked which alignments options they would support, the community members favored the alternative 1B, which was followed by alternative 1C and alternative 1A. So the three designs within the alternative 2 were ranked as the least supported designs compared to the other alternatives. And then again, just reminding you that you'll have a real team update from the consultant team and the project management team that is representing this rather than myself. So they will be here in March. And at that time, we're going to cover the active transportation memo, which is going to talk a lot about pathway widths, what they're recommending, some on the alignment choices and how the community, how that better fits with the community feedback, and then a lot about like connectivity and how this project could better fit within our existing infrastructure. One other thing we wanted to mention is regional flexible funding grant announcement. Metro has shared that they anticipate the next round of funding will open in September of 2024. This project, we think, we haven't seen the criteria yet, but we think will align well with that. We would like to have good direction from the commission on what their impressions are of the recommendations, and some direction on whether or not they think it's a good project to be pursuing regional flexible funds on. So that's coming. And then in spring, we'll be meeting with some of our stakeholders regarding streetscape design for the corridor. And so more to come on that. And with that, that's your update, and I'm happy to try to answer any questions you have.
We're not going to have any now because we want to get parks on before we meet our
I get it.
magic hour. But
You can always send us your thoughts. Too.
Yeah, thank you.
So the next item was the 4th of July celebration. So we took what we heard from the last discussion, put together 2 proposals, mainly around in a live band event, include food and beverage component, followed up with a laser light show. So I don't know how much direction you want to give us. The difference between the two is about 22,500 versus 25,700. Main difference being the opportunity for additional carnival type games, entertainment component mixed into the more expensive proposal. So I think really, is this what you're thinking when we were talking about this? Do you have any other ideas? You want us to go in a different direction? One you like over the other, or just want us to pick and move forward?
First of all, I want to say to our 2 new staff members, our meetings normally aren't like this.
But they can be.
But they can be sometimes.
I'm sorry. So, so Commissioner Morrow, would you like to make some comment about this, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I really appreciated going through these proposals. For me, just the big question mark is how we get it funded. I wish, like I had requested, that we would have been able to have this conversation earlier, so they could have been tied up in a conversation about the funding of the concerts in the park, which I think would have been a perfect way to do that. Obviously, those contracts, or to my understanding, are already done for, and so the question mark for me is how we get this funded, and whether we would be able to, as a city, be able to use the city-sponsored special events funds
for ourselves
that have gone largely unused.
Well, we have, it can come from several places, obviously, but we have that process in March right? So
Shooting
we'll
for.
know how much applicants we have. We can, if we have money left over after doling out those grants, we can have that conversation. If we don't have enough money left over in that fund, then we figure out if it comes from contingency or whatever, but
I was gonna suggest the opposite, that we go ahead and
just do that.
and then
And reimburse.
and then if we need additional funding, then we take the contingency for the grants from that.
I think we're going to know pretty soon.
Right, well,
Yeah.
no.
One way or the other. Last year, I think out of the 100,000, I can't remember if it was 40,000 or 50,000 was roughly requested. I'd have to see where we're at right now in terms of the number of grants that we've received, and to see how much of that money, but like I said, that's going to close probably within the next couple of weeks here, so we're going to know pretty quick.
So, I like, and to the main question, I like what I see in these proposals, and I really appreciate the light show component, and the entertainment and the live music. As far as the differences between, proposal 1 and 2, I think, for me, I would prefer that maybe we start smaller on our first year. I think there are plenty of opportunities with nonprofits and community groups that would love to have set up activities for themselves, at tents or something like that. I don't know if in fact maybe that makes things more difficult to plan. But I think for me, I would prefer to keep it on the smaller side as we begin.
Couldn't agree with you more, and I'd like to recommend that we support the food cart and beverage sales concert and the light show, as proposed as 22,530. I think keeping it simple, this is the first time we're trying it. I don't want to put any more work on the staff. And I think, I agree with you, because there's a way to look at this next year, and if, like you said, I think that's a great idea to see if community groups want to get in on this to, make a little money. We don't have to do it. So, we have a motion?
Well,
Do you have comments?
I agree to not include the carnival games, but I would like to see on those bullet points something just to say nonprofit booths, nonprofit whatever as a part of it.
You mean in the food and beverage?
I mean, as one of the activities that's going on. Whether it's the CIC with an information booth.
Oh, okay, you're talking about that, okay.
Yeah, I'm talking about nonprofit booth space.
Information space,
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Sounds good. Do we have a motion?
I'm not sure what we would include in a motion, but.
That we are recommending that we approve the proposal A.
I move that staff move forward on proposal 1 and come back to us with more details when they are available.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Commissioner Adam Marl?
Aye.
Commissioner Mike Mitchell?
Aye.
Commissioner Frank O'Donnell?
Aye.
Commissioner Rocky Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Denise McGriff?
Thank you.
Would you like to do your introduction?
I would love to. Taylor Miller just started, even a month ago? It's about 2 months. He's our new rentals and events coordinator. He's housed out at the Pioneer Center. He is outstanding. This is one of the first big events that he's taking the lead on, and he's done a great job. I'd just like to thank him for the quick turnaround, and we're just really excited to continue to work with him.
Welcome aboard, and you've got a good mentor right there, sitting in the middle chair, who's doing a great job. All right.
Just before you close the meeting, I didn't get your vote on the last.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Got it. Thanks.
Said aye. All right. Last on our agenda is anything else you'd like to add, and I would like you to do the introduction, please. We were waiting until the end of the meeting, and I'm so sorry, I should have done it at the beginning of the meeting. Please forgive me.
So I'd like to introduce Alexandra Rains, our new Assistant City Manager, joining us she's the city manager in the city of Scappoose, started Monday, so her 3rd day. So it's just been really great working with Alex over the last couple of days, introducing her to staff, walking around the city, trying to get her up to speed as quickly as we can on the priorities, the projects, the goals of the commission, and just really look forward to working with her. And I'm sure she's met all of you, and just really excited.
Welcome to the fun house. Would you like to say anything? You don't have to.
Of course.
Trust me, I'll keep it very short, but I just want to say I'm really excited and happy to be here and just trying to get caught up as quickly as possible so I can be as effective as I can. That's it.
Take the comp plan, put it under your pillow, it'll just all come by osmosis.
I wish it were that easy.
All right, so last but not least, I just asked Jacob to submit to you in your packet the Willamette Falls locks update. Thought you would want to know what's going on with it. And there's considerable work being done. The next thing that we're working on right now is to get the agreement in place so that the Corps can financially and legally transfer the locks to the authority. And of course, they have to have all the work done before they transfer it, so that work is ongoing, and they're getting there. They're getting there. It's just slow. So that's all I have. I just wanted you to see that because I thought it was a good summary.
Okay, just if I may, really quickly.
You're over time, buddy.
I know, we're over time, but while our park staff was here, I just wanted to recognize our park staff, specifically our aquatic staff, who was helping out with the Lunar New Year celebration that occurred on Saturday. It was an incredible, it was a beautiful event, and I really was so pleased to see so many people from the community and other communities showing up to support that event. And then the other thing, I participated in a meeting recently with other stakeholders that contributed to the West Lynn-led poll that is going to be gauging resident interest and support and ideas on tolling. You'll recall that we dedicated some funds toward that, and they are moving ahead with that, and we did some edits to make it clearer, and I'm looking forward to seeing the final project move forward.
Okay, being no further business,